It's the start of an incredible journey, a new era for motorsport. Welcome to Extreme E, an all-electric racing series with a purpose: to raise awareness of climate change.
And we start here in the remote deserts of Saudi Arabia. Around the canyons of Al Ula, the Extreme E teams, 9 men and 9 women, will do battle across a car-breaking landscape of rocks and sand. The 8.8-kilometre course is breathtakingly beautiful, but it will test every car to its limit. Hello and a very warm welcome to Al Ula in Saudi Arabia, in the desert, and to a genuine piece of motorsport history, the first event of the Extreme E calendar. Before we go any further, if you want to know all about Extreme E, here's your starter pack. Earth, a planet in perfect balance, providing life across 7 continents, from the biodiverse rainforests of South America to the deepest parts of our oceans. But this existence is at threat. Humans are pumping dangerous levels of carbon into the atmosphere, causing the planet's temperature to rise. In the last decade, we have been witness to the hottest temperatures ever recorded, and huge parts of our ice caps are melting into the ocean, disrupting the ecosystem, threatening our way of life.
The consequences of climate change are affecting millions of people across the planet.
Cities worldwide, everywhere, are going to become uninhabitable.
Our planet is heading towards a climate disaster that threatens all life on Earth as we know it.
We have to act now to make those changes.
Extreme E will bring together the fastest drivers on 4 wheels, in fully electric racing off-road SUVs, to some of the most remote and damaged areas on Earth, raising awareness of the environment, electrification and equality.
I have an impossible dream: to race electric cars in the most remote corners of the planet, and all without leaving a trace.
The X Prix will be held across 5 countries, each highlighting the local impact of climate change, from the polluted ocean of Senegal, melting ice caps of Greenland, diminishing rainforests of the Amazon, retreating glaciers of Patagonia, to rapidly heating deserts of Saudi Arabia, using the power of sport to highlight the effects human impact is having on our world.
I think it's really important to really immerse yourself in those areas and see what's happening with climate change, so we can really increase awareness, and from awareness we can have more people taking more actions.
To tackle these demanding locations requires one of the most robust racing cars ever built, the Odyssey 21. This purpose-designed all-electric machine is constructed using cutting-edge environmental technologies and materials. The battery will be charged using a hydrogen fuel cell, producing clean, emission-free energy. Behind the wheel of these off-road machines will be some of the biggest names in racing.
The car feels insane.
It's amazing how much torque you have to have immediate power when you touch the throttle pedal.
The drivers, they didn't know what to expect and they were blown away. That's probably the biggest shock, is just how much torque you're able to get.
And marking an historic first for international motorsport, the driver lineup will be equally split, 50% male, 50% female.
The level of competition is going to be insane.
Teams will go wheel to wheel on the most extreme terrains, in the most extreme temperatures, driving the most extreme vehicles.
Extreme E takes racing to uncharted territories by bringing the action to some of the most remote locations, all of which are suffering from the destruction of our environment.
But there is more to this than flat-out racing. A team of industry-leading scientists have joined our race for a greener future to provide unrivaled insights into the regions where we compete, guaranteeing we race without a trace. When the checkered flag falls, our legacy programs will ensure that Extreme E leaves a lasting difference in each and every location.
We want to bring awareness, we want to showcase electric cars, and we want to leave behind a legacy linked to climate change and to pollution.
Wouldn't it be great to be a part of something that really does make a difference?
This is fierce and exciting racing with the future of our planet at its heart. This is the greatest adventure of our time. This is Extreme E.
Extreme E has been a magnet for some of the world's best drivers. There are 18 of them, 1 male and 1 female in 9 teams. So let's take a closer look.
Extreme E sees 9 teams entering the inaugural season, and they are filled with some of the best driving talent on the planet. American racing royalty Andretti have teamed up with Britain's United Autosport and have 2019 World Rallycross champion Timmy Hansen driving alongside Katie Munnings.
Katie is not my sister, but almost, you know. We get along well, and I feel already at home in Andretti United.
Chip Ganassi Racing are known for fielding winners, and they intend to keep it that way. With eyes on the prize, the All-American outfit have recruited Carl LeDuc and Sarah Price.
We will do it with a purpose and leave the smallest footprint as we can, but our footprint will be on the top of that podium for sure.
Apt Racing are partnering with performance brand Cupra and have plenty of driving experience as Claudia Herdgen and former World Rallycross champion Matthias Ekstrom take the wheel. Acciona Science, created by rally legend Carlos Sainz, sees the 2-time World Rally champion and 4 times Dakar Rally winner pairing up with Leia Sands, an 11 times Dakar racer. Suiza, the Spanish brand with Swiss engineering heritage. Driving for the team is rally racer Christine Gianpaolo Zonca and British rallycross driver Oliver Bennett. Veloce Racing have Formula E and Formula One experience behind the scenes, with Stefan Sarazan and Jamie Chadwick behind the wheel. With 7 F1 titles to his name, Lewis Hamilton has launched his own team, X44, employing the most successful rally driver in history, Sebastian Loeb, along with Cristina Gutierrez, only the 2nd female driver ever to win a Dakar stage.
From a driver's perspective, I'm always looking for someone that's pushing the limits. Experience is key, so there's no substitute for experience.
Hot off the heels of Lewis Hamilton's X44, his former teammate and 2016 Formula One World Champion Nico Rosberg enters with Rosberg X Racing. He's recruited the talent of 3 times World Rallycross champ Johan Kristoffersen and the youngest and only female Australian rally champion Molly Taylor. Last to enter this almighty roster, JBXE, founded by Jenson Button. He becomes the 3rd Formula One World Champion to launch their own Extreme E team and the first to be taking to the wheel as well. He's chosen Swedish rally driver Michaela Arling-Kotolinski as his teammate.
I think we'll be putting on a fantastic show everywhere that we go, and they've got the great base for it, you know, fantastic machinery, and the best drivers in the world. Can't wait for the season to start.
It's been 4 years in the making, but Extreme E is finally here, and what an incredible place to begin this story. It's a totally alien environment, and that sounds about right, because the teams and the drivers all say it feels like they're on another planet. It's an 8.8 kilometre course through canyons, across deep sand dunes, huge rocks and treacherous climbs and drops. So hold your breath, and let's go for a run through it.
Round 1 of the Extreme E Championship will be held on this 8.8 kilometre circuit situated in the heart of the Saudi Arabian desert. A course built around this incredible dramatic landscape to highlight the effects of desertification on this delicate ecosystem. The course is made up of gates that the drivers must pass through, but with no track limits, the teams can choose their own line around the course for the best lap time. So away from the starting area, it's a very long run up to what is effectively turn 1. Now that won't matter when you're running on your own in the time trials. In the race section of the event, you're going to want to get there first because of the dust. There are many sandy, bumpy sections to the track, undulations, and it's about how hard you can attack them. How much can the Odyssey 21 take? How quickly can you pass over the very difficult terrain? Slowest part of the course, up at the far end, through a dry riverbed and then around a hairpin left, which takes you around the back side of the course and to the most dramatic feature of all. More than 45 degrees, a 100-metre drop straight down a sand dune into a narrow gate at the bottom. Side by side there, things are going to get very tricky indeed. Undulations again, changing between road surfaces, sand, gravel, rocks. There's some undergrowth out there too. The drivers are going to have to pick their line, but they're going to be able to choose their line. Separate paths, which one's quicker? Does it give you an opportunity to take some time off a competitor or maybe be able to make a pass? Another downhill section here, coming towards the end of the lap, and it's another transition from sand onto gravel. This might suit the rally drivers just a little bit more, passing onto a road which effectively is the last track. But by now, I think you'll know whether you're going to take the checkered flag first or not. There is the finish, and that is a lap of Al-Ula.
Well, it's almost time for qualifying, and Andrew.
I am joined on the grid by 9-time World Rally champion and the first ever driver to cross the Extreme E start line on our inaugural event, Sebastian Loeb. How are you feeling? What's going through your mind right now?
For sure, I'm excited to start the race now. Difficult to know what to expect. It will be our first real race with this car. I'm really looking forward. The place is beautiful. The car feels really well, so I will try my best. I hope we can do something good.
As the first driver through the start line and with this event having so much purpose, does that add extra importance for you?
For sure, it's a bit of pressure to be the first one to start. So I will try to be concentrated, try to do a good stage, trying to avoid a mistake. It will be important to go to the finish. So it's tricky. We will need to be concentrated and to do it well. So it's what I will try to do.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the race.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have fun.
Well, Sebastian Loeb, one of our key drivers and the first man to take to this course in the X44, the purple colours chosen by Lewis Hamilton, the Formula One world champion 7 times over. And what a stunning backdrop, Andrew Coley, this is. What a stunning day it is to go off and do qualifying.
Yeah, very exciting, isn't it? And I think it's quite fitting, really. You know, the only person with more FIA world titles, I think, than Lewis is Sebastian, so we might as well get him stuck into the course first of all. It doesn't get much more legendary, does it? Interesting that he says there's a bit of pressure. Interesting also that the sun is so low. Remember, local time is only 07:20. So in terms of driver visibility, look at the canyons and the darkness which could be across. It's going to be interesting to see if that changes. It may actually be an advantage from a visibility point of view to run later in the session, but is the track going to get cut up?
Well, I spoke to Professor Richard Washington about this, and he said that actually when you're looking at the desert, it's constantly shifting, the light is constantly changing. All of that sandstone makes it almost like an illusion, so the drivers are going to have to be very aware of what's happening of their surroundings, and that they're only going to get one bite of the cherry, so they've got to go out and perform straight away.
And it's both drivers as well, remember, so this is the first time we're going to see a complete run, which is 2 laps. So first lap for your first driver into the switch zone. There's a minimum time in the switch zone before you go out for your second lap. That's when, on this occasion, the female driver will take over, which is Cristina Gutierrez. Interesting, you know, Loeb's going first. I think that's probably so he can jump on the radio afterwards and talk Cristina through anything that he sees. But she is a very, very good driver herself. I think 5 Dakar finishes, is it, Jenny, under her belt?
Yep, it certainly is. So there's a lot of experience, a lot of talent going into this. And yes, slightly different disciplines sometimes, but this is the joy of this championship and the series. It brings people into it. So let's have a look at this course and we can show you exactly what the drivers and Sebastian Loeb are going to have to contend with. So a long run down to gate 1. Fine today, but when it comes to the racing tomorrow, 3 cars going to that could be potential jeopardy. Then they get up to turn 2 and sling around onto a very gravelly section of the track, and this prepares us for what is, I think, one of the most spectacular events I've seen in motorsport. The run to the ravine through gate 3. They go up the hill, very careful not to clip the gate, which we saw yesterday, down that ravine, 45-degree angle, 100 meters. Wait, it'll wake you up, that's for sure. Then through to gates 4, they build up speed towards gate 5, which they do a slingshot around that big rocky section, treacherous as well, with roots and all sorts of gravel there. And then a fast track down to gate 7, through to 8, and then back to the switch zone. And Andrew Coley, we are almost ready to go. Sebastian Loeb is on his start line.
It is indeed finally time for a green light and for the clocks to start as well. Yesterday, everybody had one attempt at a lap. It went better for some than for others. You can see the lights on either side of the grid, and what a grid. That is some start grid, it really is.
15 seconds.
Proper backdrop, 15 seconds from race control. Here we go. Time to get Sebastian Loeb launched into the first ever lap of an Extreme E course. Green light and Loeb is away from the line. Wheel spin, dust from the back of the car. And finally, we're away. This is it now. It's competition time. Extreme E starts right now in Al Ula, Saudi Arabia. Couldn't be more excited to get stuck into this. So down towards the first corner, Loeb over on the left-hand side of the track. We saw a lot of people taking different lines down through here yesterday. I think trying to figure out what they're going to do when they're 3 cars wide. Loeb, though, at the minute is on his own, coming up towards the first corner. Just have a look at this at the minute. On board with Loeb, pretty high up the speed there. 125 miles an hour is top speed for these. He's smooth through there, and then it's the gate to the right and then to the left. So, Jenny, that's when they're going to have to get in a line when there's more than one car. And it's important because that's what's happening tomorrow.
Yeah, some of these sections you can see Loeb just getting a bit of air there as he goes across one of the tracks that runs parallel with this course. So that bit, a real sort of run where they've got to jump up and down. Delighted to say that in the commentary box, we also have Formula E race winner from last time out. It is Sam Bird. Sam, it's a delight to welcome you into the commentary box. You're a specialist now when it comes to electric cars. And what do you make of this, your first sort of eyes on qualifying?
This is a historic moment, isn't it, guys? Firstly, good morning, everybody. As we watch Sebastian Loeb, the first car ever to do a qualifying lap in Extreme E. And if you wanted anybody to go out first and set a lap time for your team, you've got absolutely the man for the job, Sebastian Loeb, the greatest rally driver in the history of the game, going out there and performing for Lewis Hamilton's team. As we see, what a magnificent shot that is going down the hill.
That's my favourite part of the course. 45 degrees, 100-metre drop, and then into a narrow section at the bottom again. And here we can see the difference in light again from yesterday. You know, he's going to come here, Sam, from the dark into bright sunshine. I know you guys experienced that in Formula E in a very different way. We're talking about buildings, of course, and the change of light, it really changes your perception.
Yeah, when you've got glare on the visor or on the windshield, it is certainly off-putting. It can make you brake slightly earlier. So changes of light can be extremely tricky things, and we're going to see, right, you know, over the next hour or so, changes of light through the ravines, through the rocks. It'll be different for every single driver.
Look at the different lines through there, lots of different tyre tracks through. They've got to make it up to the gates, but the gates are pretty wide. There's a red and a green flag on each of the gates. Some of them are marked as course markers, which you'll have seen on our graphics earlier on. So there are 8 gates which are actually marked, if you like, as waypoints around the course. But there are many more gates than that for the drivers. So the drivers have to be able to see the next gate from the previous one. Now, there are sections of the track where that can be up to 2.5 kilometres, but there are sections like this where we either want to put them through a chicane to liven it up a bit, or because of the elevation change, they just need to see the next flag a little bit earlier. So don't get yourselves too confused with it. Basically, think of it as they just must get to the next gate.
Yeah, always a marker on the horizon for them. As you can see, it's a pretty expansive desert. And a couple of the drivers actually reporting yesterday in the shakedown, Matthias Ekström was one of them, saying he got a little bit lost in the sand a couple of times. So making sure you know your course. They've only had one run of this so far. It's pretty vital to getting a good track. Now, this section is a fast section where the sand is compacted a little bit more and you can pick up some real speed before you go down the fast downhill section.
That section there as well from the side, that wonderful shot we had, I think, oh, mistake for Loeb. Loeb with a big mistake, drops it off the side of the sand dune now, got to try and drag the car back up to the top. Enough traction and enough power, but that is a big mistake by Loeb there, Sam.
That's vital seconds gone now. It's going to be, he's got to compose himself, make sure that there's no more mistakes in this run.
I'm quite surprised by that, to be honest. It was...
Well, he hit a dip, didn't he? And then he just sent the car the wrong way, but he gathered it up pretty well, as you would expect. Yeah.
On board, you can see he doesn't look too flustered. We're only talking, what, Sam, 3-4 seconds, maybe not even that. But of course, it's not just the mistake, it's the momentum after the mistake.
Yeah. Look, this is the first lap that's ever been done in qualifying, so we're yet to see just where this where this puts us, to be honest. This could be a super quick lap. This could be not so super. Let's find out.
Right, so he's going to turn left now. This is the final marker point on this course. So he'll turn left towards the switch zone, and this will be the first time any of us have seen a live switch take place. So just to clarify, 45 seconds is the minimum time that they can take for the switch. So they have to lower their speed. There's also a penalty if they go too fast. And Sebastian Loeb will switch with his fellow driver, Cristina Gutierrez.
So you can see there Loeb braking very hard, as late as he possibly could, just as you would if you want to compare this to a motorsport you may know a bit more. We're talking pit lane speed limiter. So you need to brake as late as you can, down to the speed, hold that speed up to the switch zone. Loeb is out the car. Only 3 people can touch the car at this point. In goes the seat insert for Gutierrez. So that's not going to move her far forward because her and Sebastian are a similar height. One of the reasons they may put the guys in first is that they're slightly bigger as a general rule than the girls, and it's easier to tighten the belt than it is to loosen them. So in theory, it should be a faster change. Now that may change when we go racing, because tactically you may want to put in the female or the male driver first, and that could be because of speed, it could be because of the switch speed. You can see Gutierrez is in already. The belts are on. She's looking across now at the time. If she leaves early, there'll be a penalty. She's waiting on the button, and she pushes the button. Now, outside the car, there are indicators on the car which, Sam, tell everybody what mode the car is in. And you have a similar mode system in Formula E. We're about to see Gutierrez do a lap, tightening down the chest belts as well. Really important to get those tight.
Her heart rate will now be 150, 160. Adrenaline will be coursing through her body. It reminds me very much of a endurance racing driver change. You know, I've had to do many of them with Ferrari, and it feels like that. You know, you are super pumped before then coming out of the pit lane, and it's effectively the same thing that we've just seen just there for Gutierrez.
Look at the run down to the first corner, Jenny, from the switch zone. Looks even longer and straighter. Flat out on board now with Gutierrez. Listening to this. Absolutely just whistling away at super high RPM. And really hard to judge braking points because they're not, you sound, most of these guys are used to an engine and gears, and when you, one of the things of switching to electric, some of the drivers have said, is their reference for how fast they're going isn't there.
When I first drove Formula E, I was amazed by the lack of noise, you know, but now, for me, it's completely normal. I'm used to hearing now tyre squeals, the sound on the curbs, the sound of the dampers, the whine of the electric motor, the drivetrain. So these are all things that these drivers will be getting used to.
Yeah, Gutierrez also getting, as you say, getting used to the bumps, the elevation, the changes. I mean, she's got plenty of Dakar experience. She was the first woman to win a stage of the Dakar since our very own. Yeah, absolutely. In 2021, this year. So she's going to make her way towards that big drop-off zone, and this is where you've got to get the entry right, isn't it, Sam?
Yeah, I was just thinking, Jenny, for me, there's absolutely no question on Sebastian Loeb's ability or Gutierrez's ability, but for me, the qualifying position will be pretty much on how quick Gutierrez can be in comparison to her female compatriots.
Why is that, Sam? Because of the depth in talent that we've already got on the male side. It's, you know, the whole point of this is to get equality, and we're going to see the best girls in this, aren't we? Because there's both people in the car count towards the lap time. They both got to do the do. And so the pressure, whilst this is a huge opportunity for the female drivers, it is also an immense amount of pressure because you've got to get the job done now.
It is an immense amount of pressure. And also the female drivers, not many of them have got rallying experience. So it's going to take them a little bit of time to get up to speed. So I think the female drivers with some experience in this field certainly have an advantage like Gutierrez.
Yeah. All the drivers coming from different disciplines. Of course, the same counts for the male drivers. We've got the likes of Jensen Button, who come mostly from a circuit racing background. Jensen has done Baja and things which will be to his advantage, but I think we're expecting, personally, I'm kind of expecting the experience of off-road to be the most important thing.
I think that's the fascinating journey, isn't it, with this? We don't know quite how it's going to work out. We don't know who's going to be the fastest, and we're excited to see.
And also, the time trial, Jenny, is a completely different discipline from the race sides. There are going to be people like Gutierrez, Carlos Sainz, tons of experience off-road, but not so much experience wheel to wheel. You know, that's the point at which maybe the likes of Jenson Button and Chadwick, okay, they maybe lack off-road experience, but they're going to have the experience of wheel-to-wheel racing. So, you know, they may have a slight advantage there. Or you could say, no, do you know what? It's going to be the rallycross guys who've got experience of both. So it's a fascinating journey, which you guys are all on with us. Hope you're loving it. 9:22 is the time at the moment. Waiting to see where Gutierrez is. Our drone is up.
You can hear her.
Yeah,
she's still running.
Going.
There we go.
There we are.
Back on board with her. And I have to say, the visibility of what these drivers can see is extremely limited, Sam. And when they're going through those gates, as Gutierrez comes through both those gate markers and down the hill on the fast downhill section through that sand, it's a pretty tough challenge, isn't it, for these drivers?
Yeah, Gutierrez has just negotiated the area where Seb Loeb had his little moment. She got through there absolutely fine, which is good for her. It is super difficult to pick braking points, turn-in points at the moment. She's probably looking at the grooves in the sand from the day before, trying to pick her turn-in points. But this circuit will change and evolve as the qualifying in the racing goes on. And the more grooves in the circuit, the slower, potentially, the course could get.
Gutierrez is impressing me here. She's on it very much. You can see she's done, I think, 4 of her Dakars. I think we're in the T1 class, which is a very similar size and weight of car to this, obviously with an IC engine, internal combustion. And then she did it this year in a buggy. That was when she won the stage. Utilise, as Jenny was the last one to win it. That was back in 2005. Backs it into that last corner just a little bit. She's kept it smooth, no mistakes. It'd be a big relief now as Gutierrez comes around to take the finish for the first time. And that is our first ever Extreme E run completed. It's a 10:48.067. So 10:48.067 is the benchmark for everybody else.
3 minutes on the start grid.
That's race director Scott Elkins, you can hear, and he's saying 3 minutes on the grid for the next car. Gutierrez tightens the belts down at the end of the run there, Sam. She's all fired up, isn't she? Look at that.
Take a breath, take a breath. Guys, we have a time.
Yeah.
We have a time to work.
First one
Fantastic.
ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is mission control.
It looked like a very smooth lap, didn't it? It looked like there were no issues. She did a good, solid job.
Not too much risk. I mean, we saw more of a risk from Sebastian Loeb with his tiny little issue. Great job.
So this is Jenson Button's team taking the start. Button and Arlene Kotelinski teaming up to make the second of our challenges, and a good start from Jenson Button, the 2009 Formula One world champion, and you can see the car flicking up. That's the excitement and drama of Extreme E.
Jenson Button on his first proper timed lap with Extreme E. Of course, these guys formed the team after the test at Aragon earlier on this season, so a little bit less time in the car, maybe. And he swapped with Arlene Kotlinski, who has had a bit more time in the car because she was the test driver for Continental. Now, Arlene Kotlinski was going well. She made a small mistake at the top of the hill, which cost her a little bit of time. But unfortunately, later on in the lap, little bump here, and you'll see that the car just ground to a halt. She did a reset. Obvious disappointment from Button. They did make the finish, but a minute and 30 down. Around 45 of that was that stop out on course.
Drama builds as we wait to go. Timmy Hansen for Andretti United. Green lights, and we are off. Our third car takes it off, and Timmy Hansen has a wealth of experience. As Andrew was saying, the 2019 World Champion and FIA World Rallycross Championship, and he makes a long run down to the first gate. Sand flicking up okay today in qualifying when there's just the one car. When there are 3, you're going to want to slingshot yourself out to make sure you can get clear of all of that sand flying up.
I'll tell you what, someone who won't be scared of a bit of wheel-to-wheel action in the start is Timmy Hansen. This is just such a nice guy, but you do not want to go door-to-door with Timmy in turn 1. Any of the rallycross boys, they are not scared of getting stuck in. He gives it a big send in turn 1. Katie's there. I know her family will be watching back in the UK. I know for a fact the Hansen family will be watching up in Sweden. Susan and Kenneth, Timmy's parents. Kenneth, the most successful driver in European rallycross history with 14 titles. His brother Kevin, a European champion. You know, this is a motorsport family through and through, the Hansens, and they'll be watching.
This is right up Timmy Hansen Street, this championship, isn't it? You've got the rally aspect of it, but you've also got the racing aspect when we go to head-to-head competition tomorrow. He's a super smooth operator, a world champion, and I'm expecting this team, and under United with Zach Brown out there watching as well, to be right up the sharp end.
Over that harsh, rocky section there. Has Timmy taken a slightly different line on the run through there?
This is the second time I've seen him taking a different line. He went to the left-hand side of one of the small bushes. So this is a different line. He's coming up to that big drop-off. So this is giving you an idea of the throttle, of the torque. Let's see, a little bit of air there.
Yeah, so that's what we were saying about whether you lift or not at that crest. And yesterday we did see a couple of people go flat. Timmy there was with a comfort lift, which could potentially be to look after the car. Look at the difference in darkness, and there as well you see the impact in the car. Very physical. They can adjust how much the power steering assists them, and that's partly to account for the different strengths of the two drivers. And by that I mean physical strength. You may want a little bit more assistance or not, depending on how your upper body strength is. But Sam, the extra assistance comes at a cost of not as much feel.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. You're teaching me as I go along. We're all learning today. One thing that I've noticed is he's carrying a lot of minimum speed through some of the corners, especially when we look back at turn 1 in comparison to, let's say, Jensen. Carried a huge amount of minimum speed, a lot of yaw in the car, and a lot of dust was kicked up compared to the previous car.
We spoke about this yesterday, mate, and my theory that all of you racing drivers... Oh, Hansen sends it through the dip section there. All you racing drivers secretly want to be rally drivers or rally cross drivers. Now, Timmy actually started life as a single-seater driver before making the switch to, let's say, the family business of rallycross. How much is it going to take for us to persuade you that you fancy a go at this, Sam?
I was on the driver list for Extreme E, and do you know what? Watching this, I'm kind of kicking myself I'm not out there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Kicking myself I'm in a room with you, Andrew.
Sorry, mate, I know. It's only failed drivers get to spend their entire day in the commentary box. That's me, I'm afraid. You're much more successful than us, but I'm desperate to make you have the switch to the dark side,
That's
you know,
okay.
the dirty side of motorsport.
Well, I've got to say, Timmy is pushing. I mean, you look at the attitude of the car, he is right on the limit of what this car can achieve. So far, this looks like a really strong lap.
You had a strong lap in Saudi Arabia yourself, didn't you, mate? I think we were, didn't we stand on the top step of the podium out there recently?
I did indeed. But this isn't about me. But
well,
yes, I did. But yes, I did win.
That's the reason.
It's not about me.
He did win. Sam Bird was the winner of that was the last Formula E race, wasn't it, in Saudi Arabia?
It was indeed, yeah. First win for Jaguar.
Fantastic.
So,
fantastic. How'd that feel?
Felt really good. Really good. Only driver to win every year so far, so that's cool as well. But
and you were in the first year?
I won in the first year.
But you were in the series in the first year?
Yeah, I've done every single race of Formula E so far, and this reminds me a lot of Formula E. Obviously, we've got Alejandro Agag, who's been influential in both series, and, you know, going into the unknown, we've never experienced something like this. We've never experienced something like Formula E in 2014, and it is really an adventure, and that's what I love about Extreme E, is this into the unknown aspect of it.
This is a mega quick lap by Hansen. I think 4:39.9 was the time of Loeb, so he's going to come down and it's going to be equal to Loeb. Is it going to be quick? I'm not sure when the clock's going to stop.
God, he got on those brakes, didn't he, to make sure he got into that switch zone on the speed limiter, and making sure he didn't go over the kilometres per second.
Katie ready to jump into the car. We didn't see the exact point at which the timing stopped there, but she's about to jump on board. Hansen pulls into the slot. They're up at the far end. Stops the car now. It has to go into the mode where they then start the clock.
It looks super tight, Andrew, between the Loeb car and Timmy's car at the moment.
Sam, I'm surprised they've got nothing on the belts there to hold the belts up high. Let's watch the switch on board. So Katie reaches in for the crutch belts, up towards the harness straps at the top.
Jensen's car had a second mechanic on the other side doing the belts on the right-hand side, and here we've only got one, but that was a super quick change, actually.
I spoke to Timmy, me and Jenny both spoke to Timmy and Katie via Zoom a couple of weeks back, didn't we? And they'd been practicing the switch, Jenny, and they got it down to under 25 seconds, so they're a little bit disappointed about the 45-second rule.
Yeah, you could see there was a system, there was a way they were doing it that they practiced time and time out, so they knew what they were doing. Right, Katie hits the drive button and off she goes. This is her first lap. So we saw Timmy Hansen setting a really good time. Now, the part of Extreme E, which is fascinating, is this is a team sport. Now she's got to go out and do her part. So she knows what the standard is. They've spoken about it. They've looked with their engineers and mechanics at all the different lines. Timmy will find this incredibly hard watching his car go off.
Interesting, just noticed down the switch zone, the team had a tyre there on the deck ready to go, and that will be in case Timmy's detected that he's picked up a slow puncture or even completely ripped the tyre off the rim. You know, with a car like this, it's not like single-seaters. We get one of these cars back on 3 wheels easily. You know, like to a rally driver, if you can drag it back and get another wheel on it, you go again. There's a limit to that, but they had a wheel and tyre there ready to go. So it'd be interesting if anybody does get a puncture on a first lap to see just how quickly they could get that done as well, because I think only the 3 people, so the 2 drivers and the other technician, can touch the car in that switch zone. Wow. So that would be another element to this. But on board with Katie Munnings, all her experience coming from rallying. Here we go. So over on the left-hand side, yeah, you can see torque and traction, the amount of kilowatts which are being delivered. On the right-hand side, you can see the speed. We were up at 130 kilometers an hour just a moment ago. Got to head in towards that gate over on the left. So Katie took a different line through there, came in nice and wide, which gives her a good exit. That's the kind of dry riverbed up at the hairpin. And now she's coming up towards the big drop. I'm kind of hoping we might stay on board for the big drop here, so but we'll see. Look, there's a steep climb, and then it gets narrow, Jenny. When we watched that first onboard, we saw Timo Scheider's recce lap. It was like, seriously? Wow.
Yeah, Katie just choosing to stay out of those deep ridges that have already started to form, which are going to be such a characteristic of this weekend. She'll make it up to the top of the hill through that narrow gated section.
There,
this is where she mustn't make a mistake. She slows slightly, just going to the right. She's got to find that gate.
She got low.
And then down she goes. I think she was a little slow there.
Same mistake as Arlen Kotlinski. She turned in too early at the first gate, and that meant that the camber of the road pulled her off to the right-hand side. She then had to wait on the throttle, because with the sand, if you get on the throttle early, you pick up the wheel spin and the car drops down the slope. So needed to just take a little bit higher line through that first gate. Look at Katie as well, very Petter Solberg with the mouth there. You know, like, it's fascinating to watch drivers. Sam, this is what we don't see with you guys with your fancy full-face crash helmets on, you know, but everybody's got their concentration face, haven't they?
I'd hate to see my facial expressions while driving. But that mistake has cost her vital seconds. When she left, it was super close, around 2 seconds between Loeb's car and Hansen's car. Now the gap is up to nearly 14 seconds. So let's see if Katie can bring it back in again.
So that mistake probably then 6, 7, 8 seconds maybe, but the same, of course, for Arlen Kotlinski, but then they had a stop out on track. So I guess now it's about how, yeah, whether she can match the pace of Gutierrez over the rest of the lap. There's Timmy in the command centre now watching on.
Interesting that both of the drivers for Andretti United have actually had their visors up. We can just see that Katie's struggling with that car just in that sand. Is drifting off to the left a little bit with the tracks, carefully past that boulder. Gosh, she was close.
Takes the left-hand line, keeps it in tight. This is the bumpy section that we saw Timmy flat out through, and Katie's very quick through there as well, keeping it smooth now. Got to get in tight. Right in the middle of that gate is a big clump of undergrowth. The car's got enough ride height to get over that, but if you hit that at an angle, you know, you can be risking damaging suspension or potentially the car digging in a roll. Look at the dust getting kicked up. That's the super fine stuff, and look at the visibility. This is the sort of point where, Sam, you do not want to be behind. Oh, backing it in through here. Look at the bumps. She's got, I think, the right rear puncture.
She's got a puncture.
The right rear's gone down on the car. You could see it flailing about. I wonder why the dust was so much. So Katie Munning's now going to have to manage that puncture all the way back. Timmy's clocked it as well in the engineers. I'm almost sure that the right rear is down.
What's that going to feel like in the car? What's she going to now have to deal with?
Well, first of all, she's got to look after the car, because with a puncture like that, it is sand, isn't it? You can see the amount of sand that's coming up from it. The bodywork doesn't matter. The bodywork can all come off if it needs to. But she's got to manage not breaking the car on the return to the paddock, because with a broken wheel, say, a rally car will get back. Look at this. Spectacular pictures. Katie's still on a big push. She's doing brilliantly. If she can get this back, that's a puncture, Sam. What? Not even halfway round the lap. So come on, Katie, get it back to the paddock.
She's doing a phenomenal job. you know, in a GT car, in a single-seater, it's impossible to push when you have a puncture. You have to slow right down to 20, 30 kilometers an hour, and it is very much survival, just get home. But she is absolutely giving it everything here.
Get in. This is a brilliant drive by Munnings. It really is. That, say, the rear right is down on the car. You can see from the way it's flailing the sand up into the air. But she's going to get that car back and lose the least time she can possible. Now you can see the car crabbing. One thing that you could do, if you got stuck in the dunes with a puncture on the rear right, that could cause you a stoppage. But I think she's through the steepest of those sections now, and she'll just try and carry the momentum. But Sam, she's going to be accounting for this sideways movement in every approach to every corner.
She's just in survival mode right now, Andrew. But she's pushing, but it's... Oh,
come on, Katie.
The tyre is off the rim.
It is off the rim. She's on the lock stops both ways round now. She's just got a few metres to go to make it to the finish line. One more gate to go. Come on, Katie, bring it home. Through the flags to the left-hand side. She's going to gun it up towards the line. It's a hero drive for me from Katie Munnings with a punch from halfway round. Brings the car home. Brilliant drive. Fantastic. They've lost time with a puncture. Definitely the tiny mistake at the top of the hill, but to bring that car back is absolutely fantastic.
That really is something special that she's done right there.
Timmy, you started off with an incredible lap. Walk me through yours first.
Yeah, my lap was really good. It's so fast, the track, and yeah, my adrenaline coming in was like maximum. But I think when Katie left the box here, she had a flat tire. I didn't feel anything on my lap, so it must have been a slow puncture. But then going off onto here, she had a puncture the whole way around, and she drove like a hero.
Stefan Sarazan on the start line, about to take his run. There is Chadwick, going to swap over halfway through. Veloce about to start their Extreme E journey. Green light, and away from the line. Sarazan, big dust plumes in the background. And he'll light this up now all the way down towards turn one. Imagine 3 cars coming out of those start grids and coming down here. The lines they're going to have to take. There's that crest then through here. Look at the width of it, Sam. You know, you say stick it up the inside. You can stick it up whichever side you like.
Pick a point. I mean, it's so wide. Where do you go? It's like a motorway in the middle of Malaysia.
And then where do you brake? Look at the speed, and then into here. Look, so this is the point at which you're going to see 3 cars braking side by side. This is going to be tomorrow. Make sure you come back tomorrow for the racing element of this, because this is time trials. Tomorrow we're going door to door. There's going to be some panel damage. There's no doubt about that. Oh, rear end high for Sarazan. Sarazan again kicks the rear end up. This is a big push, and I think Sarazan here is going to... I think he'll match the pace of Loban Hansen. Chadwick, we know, is quick as well, and really looking forward to seeing what she can do off-road.
Yeah, this combination of drivers, we knew it was going to be a threat. The mines going into Veloce, a really good roster of talent there. Adrian Newey also involved with this, even though you can't develop... Oh, look at that, getting really sideways.
You can see how bumpy that section was. That's the left-hander down at the end of the course, which is just narrow and bumpy, and I suspect that's going to get more rutted up as the weekend goes. Sarazan climbing now up to the side of the cliff. Jamie Chadwick in the command centre looking on, getting pumped up, ready to go. Here he comes up towards the big drop. So let's see. Kristoffersen was super committed here yesterday. Sarazan is close in on the right-hand side, but doesn't drop off too early. Gets the car lined up and just sends it straight down. Jump and lands it about 20 feet below that second crest. So Steph Sarazan on a mission here to try and match the time of Sebastian Loeb. He wants to bring this car in ahead, Jenny, and get Chadwick out there to then try and get ahead again. Big sideways moment for Sarazan. Rolls it! Stefan Sarazan's rolled the car. The rear end kicked up. He's rolled the car on course. Can he get it going again? If all 4 wheels are on it, don't be surprised if he gets going again.
I'm not sure he's going to get going again.
Front left corner, he's off the car. Oh, Chadwick disappointed. They're checking he's okay. That's the most important thing. Cockpit's intact, wheels are all on the car, but Sarazan made a mistake. You saw him hit the tuft of undergrowth. It kicked the rear end of the car up. It's got sideways and dug in, multiple rolls on a big push, and it's a mistake. That's our first big off in qualifying here. So he's taken the belts off, which suggests he feels it is unable to continue. A rally driver, any of these guys, will continue if they can. Windows are out. You can see there's sand in the car on the seat. So as that's gone over, the windows have popped out and they've taken some sand aboard. He's fine. He will be disappointed.
Bit rattled, understandably. That was a big thing. So let's see the replay of what happened then. So this is the part where he goes up over the long shot, down the drop-off.
Look at the commitment, Jenny. Jumped off that second crest. You know, that's quicker than we've seen the others going. So he's carrying a lot of speed down here. Here we go. Where's the tuft he just hit?
Just a bit further on, he goes over the ridge.
It's the road crossing. It's the road crossing. So he loses it on the road crossing, and then the front right gets launched off that tuft on the right-hand side. Watch it. Here it is sideways. Hits it, and he knows. There go the windows. In comes the sand. Lands it. What does he do? No, he's disappointed instantly. So he didn't attempt to get cracking again. What, Sam? Here we go. Look on the right. Boom. How fantastic to have all these onboards.
I've just caught up with Jamie Chadwick of Veloce Racing. You were about to make your switch to go out. You were ready, but that didn't happen. Tell us why.
Yeah, sadly, Steph caught a bit of what looked like camel grass and had a bit of a crash. So, yeah, car's now still out on the track. He's all right, I think, from what I can see. So, yeah, thankfully that's the main thing, and hopefully we can get it out for this afternoon.
What's the mood like in the command centre when you're watching your teammate run?
I mean, it's intense. I think obviously you've got to be focused on your own run. Ultimately, you know, it's very much risk versus reward, this championship. You've got one lap and you've really got to be on it. And yeah, Steph was definitely on it, and unfortunately, yeah, just got caught out there. So I think, yeah, the intensity's high, but hopefully we can be out there this afternoon.
I'm aware it's only just happened, but so far, what's the team's assessment of the damage to the car? Because obviously we need to go out again this afternoon.
Really, really hard to tell. I mean, we're quite lucky with the way it rolled. He didn't hit anything afterwards, but yeah, too hard to tell at this point. So fingers crossed. I'm sure the boys will work hard, whatever the situation, and yeah, we hope to be out.
Thank you so much.
Cheers, thank you.
Very, very difficult for Jamie Chadwick. Obviously limited running yesterday, and she goes into the race, if they can get the car fixed, with a massive disadvantage, because she would just not have the same experience as some of the other drivers who are picking up information and data every run.
Here we go, Carlos Sainz good to go on his run around the first lap. There's his onboard looking down towards turn one, and as you can see, it is a long way away. He'll be looking for the green light just off to his left, and away he goes now. Sainz, all that power from the two electric motors straight down into the dirt, those big Continental tyres finding the grip off the line, and now it's just up the RPM. There are no gears, there's just one gear that can take the car right the way up to 125 miles an hour, and Sainz is going to get close to that on the run down towards turn one. He takes that left-hand line. We know that's going to give him a quick line through the flags. Here it is. This is the bottleneck that tomorrow 3 of these cars are going to go side by side into. Sainz all the way to the left-hand side, going to lean now on the car. Oh, he's got it lit through there. A lot of pitch in the car as he comes through. Right close onto the flag on the right-hand side and then the left. That was commitment through the first section, Jenny. He's not looking too worried about the incident for Sarrazin, is he?
No, we talked about strategy and how the drivers would address this session now, but look at him. He's getting air, the car like a hobby horse, backing and bronking all over the place. It's a great show from Sainz as he tackles this Extreme E course for the very first time in qualifying. 8.8 kilometers around the desert of Saudi Arabia.
Backing it in nicely. I can see the look on Sam's face to my left. We're both grinning because through the screen you can see the tiny yellow line on the top of the steering wheel, Sam, couldn't you? And he's got it on a nice bit of right-hand lock, but backing the car in fully in the opposite direction.
I've always loved watching Carlos Sainz in a rally car, and you know what? He might be a little bit older now, but the skill is still there, isn't it?
Oh, mate, he won the Dakar in 2020, so, you know, he is absolutely on his game. I think he's got to be the oldest driver in the field, hasn't he, I think?
58.
Yeah, there we go. 58 years old and still sending it. Watch this. Here we go. Massive air. This is where Sarrazin had the problem. Now Sainz comes down to that area. Is he going to be cautious? Is he going to just cross this road fully lit El Matador style? Here is the road crossing. So this is where Sarrazin got it a little bit wrong. He crosses the road and the car stays straight. So we saw last time Sarrazin's car buck at the rear. He then hit one of these pieces of undergrowth and rolled the car. And Sainz has done absolutely brilliantly through there. This, for me, is the most committed run so far. I think he might be a bit more committed than Loeb.
It's close. It's definitely close. The standout ones, as you would expect so far, were Loeb, Hansen, and now Sainz, that's for sure.
Yeah, Sainz. Sams is his teammate. She has a wealth of experience, multiple world champion. Yes, this is a slightly different discipline for her, but I tell you what, the move from 2 to 4 wheels has been almost as smooth as Carlos Sainz is driving right now.
Fantastic. Have a look at this. You can see the data on the right-hand side, kilometres per hour, throttle and brake. So it's a lot of, but look at the brake. So he's just dabbing a little bit of left foot on the brake, and that's not really slowing the car down. Sometimes you're settling it before a jump. Sometimes you're just compressing the car just before you get to a bump section. Again, here, just a nudge on the brake, kicks the rear back on the throttle. Again, on the left-hand side, you can see the torque from the electric motors and the traction as well. So, mega.
Really mega. It's very difficult to get the power down on an electric vehicle, obviously, because the torque curve is completely linear, as we see him
wide
going
there,
around
Sam, on the exit from that left-hander.
I don't think he's lost too much time.
No.
I don't think he's lost too much time at all.
He will have worked out what his quickest line is.
Airs it out over the road crossing, up on 2 wheels, 4 wheels in the air, lands it on 2 to the side. Okay, I'm calling it. This is the most committed. You know, he might be the oldest dude out there.
But anything else?
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Come on, Carlos.
There's almost as much sand being kicked up from Carlos as there was from the car with the puncture from Katie Munnings. It's incredible how much is getting kicked up.
Do you know what I'm loving as well? So Carlos does the Dakar a lot. There isn't so much live coverage of the Dakar, yeah? So Carlos, you know, you get to see him in the highlights in the evening. This is probably the first time in a number of years that Carlos Sainz Jr. is sitting at home watching Dad competing, you know, and I'm absolutely loving that. I wonder if he'll be on the phone later on to give him a little bit of feedback. Up through the sandy section, we saw Loeb make a mistake later in the lap, and of course he dropped the car off the side of a dune and lost a few seconds, but Carlos is absolutely fully committed. And we actually saw Carlos out on track yesterday, Jenny, during shakedown, and he wasn't that committed. He did have a slight issue with the car, but interestingly, taking that approach of this is a shakedown, it doesn't need to be 110%. Now the clocks are running, it's a totally different story.
Yeah, had a power steering issue yesterday, so had to limp back on a service road. There's no limping about this. It's a very, as you say, committed run. And you can see the angle of entry and exit. Just look here as he comes up to the burr, the sand will flick up. He manages to keep it on the road. This is the final stretch down to the switch zone. So he'll flick it left through the gates. Careful not to clip that gate on the left. And one of 3 of the bays is waiting for the switch zone, and Laia Sands is about to get her opportunity.
Oh, Sainz is so late on the brakes into the switch zone. He backed it into that last turn. He's backed it into there. Laia Sands got the sunglasses on. She's good to go. Sainz rolling into that position, and we're about to get ready for a driver change. Oh, she's desperate for him to stop, rolling up towards it now. As soon as he comes to a halt, they can pass past the barriers. They've got to wait for the light to come on the car, which tells them that the car is in neutral. Here we go. Team members both heading round to the same side. Carlos climbs out. Carlos was saying that he was worried about the changeovers because he's a bit older. There was absolutely no problem there. He was out the car before Laia had even made it around to the other side.
He is fit as a fiddle, plays tennis with his son on a regular basis, Carlos Sainz Jr. The two of them travel the world with Formula One, and now it's Sainz Sr. who is the man in competition. This switch just taking a little bit longer. There is a minimum time on the switch. They must take 45 seconds anyway. They can go over that, but obviously that's a delay to the lap time. So we'll look down at the clock, and when she's ready, Laia will press the green button, and off she goes to take her first turn in qualifying and see what she can do around this 8.8 kilometre track. A little bit of a wait, I think. This is taking a long time for the switch, but there she is, finally get go. And it's a long stretch now on the limiter for the moment, and then when she goes past those 2 boards, that demarks when she can go full power, and then she's out to gate 1, and it's a long stretch, Sam, down to gate 1 in the race tomorrow. This point will be a real moment of opportunity for the drivers.
Real moment of opportunity, and visibility-wise, it's going to be so key to be out in front. I've got to say, look at the amount of sand and dust and muck that's being thrown out the back of the Odyssey XC car.
Yep, a lot of that coming out, and it's a little bit like driving in rain, I would imagine, Sam, with a rooster tail. If you're on the motorway and you're going fast, sticking to the speed limit, obviously, but that's kicking up out the back of the car.
Really reminds me of driving a single-seater at Spa in the rain. You know, going up towards Les Combes, you can't see anything if you're in second place or further back. So right now we're seeing a 10-second deficit from Sainz's car to Loeb's car.
I think most of that would have been in that switch zone. It looked like a very slow switch for some reason.
I'm scrolling through. The timing screen is brand new to us, as it is to everyone, and we're just having a look at it, and I think theirs was 1 minute 23. So it looks to me like it was 1 minute 20 for Andretti, 1 minute 20 for JBXE, 1:21 for X44, Lewis Hamilton's team, and a 1:23 for Acciona. But I think that's from the point they pass on the entry to the pit to the exit to the pit. So that includes the 45 seconds that they have to be at an absolute standstill for, and that's timed from the outside of the car, Sam, with the lights that you were telling us about from Formula E, similar system where you can tell whether the car is live, whether it's in gear, etc. So it's all quite carefully done. But yeah, it didn't look like the best, but it's only a couple of seconds, and right now, you know, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
So Sam's coming to the top of this section. This is the one you need to treat with a little bit of caution. If you feel a little bit of hesitancy, if you've maybe watched Sarrazin, who rolled at the bottom of this last time out, then yep, you might be a little bit reticent.
Little lift there at the bottom of the hill. You know, we've heard drivers taking that absolutely flat. Just a slight lift at the bottom of the hill. A little bit sideways as you come to the road crossing section. So I think there's probably just a little bit here of the transition between bikes and cars, you know, and what happens to a bike when it gets out of shape compared to what happens to a car and what you do in that situation. So, yeah, you can see the difference between the experience and science. You'd expect that. This is still a very good run, and right now it's going to put them into P2. They're just 19.1, okay, 19.6 off the time of Loeb and Gutierrez, which is looking increasingly very good indeed. And that's with Loeb's mistake. We reckon that was worth, what, 5 to 10 seconds? Yeah, with momentum lost as well. So.
Yeah, just getting up to the halfway point, up to gate 5, and that's where the change of terrain happens. It becomes a lot more compacted, a lot of a rocky and faster section that Laia Sanz can really put her foot down. You can see she's now peaking over the 100 kilometers per hour, and that will just build as she goes down this section towards the next gate.
It's going to be close between the United car and the Sainz car. I really think that they don't have P2 wrapped up just yet. This could be down to the wire right at the end of the lap.
And bearing in mind, Katie had a puncture on that second lap as well, so that really was a great drive, wasn't it? Maybe you're right, Sam, and Katie was in full risk mode rather than trying to look after the suspension at all.
There was no looking after it. That was flat out with an enormous puncture.
A little bit sideways, comes up towards the gate, lines up the road, crossing nicely. Now, this is where we saw Sainz with full air. Sainz almost cleared the road. You know, it was like 4 wheels off, landed on 2 on the side. There he is, the legend himself.
Doesn't look like he's broken sweat.
No, he doesn't. He's what absolute legend. Carlos Sainz, that's someone who you definitely want to have a catch up with at some point, isn't it? You think about the eras of motorsport that he came through, you know, competing with Colin McRae for the World Rally Championship in 1995, the controversy in Catalonia and the battle on Rally GB. Go and look it up if you've not seen it. RAC Rally back then, of course. But yeah, brilliant. Fantastic to have him in this series. He's a proper figurehead, isn't he?
Absolutely, and it's not just the top 3 that we're looking out for. We're also going to be looking out for those that are point scoring, because you do get points for qualifying, so you want to make sure you bag yourself your biggest haul of points as we go down the hill on board with Sanz. What a fantastic ride out.
Gutierrez doing Sanz doing a nice job there on the brake and the throttle. You could hear her modulating the brake and the throttle, bit of left foot on the brake to make the car rotate across the top of the crest and get it turned in. This is a low camera that we've got. I think it's on the front of the car, which gives you a bit of, nose camera, so it gives you a bit of an idea. It's slightly lower than what the drivers see, so their visibility is a little bit better than that, but not a lot.
No, I think she's had quite a cautious first sector, but she's got into her rhythm actually in this middle part of the lap. She's lost a lot less time now as she's approaching right at the end of the lap. I think they've got P2 sewn up here.
It does look like it, plus 28 seconds as she comes down through the last gate. They're going to try and stop the clocks ahead of Andretti. They're not going to be able to get Loeb and Gutierrez over the finish line now. Laia Sanz comes and takes the finish for Acciona. And they go P2, plus 28.16. That is an 11.16.231. Carlos will be very pleased with that, I'm sure. Interesting, the guys are always filming. I wonder if they're filming the feed so that they can go back and look at it immediately afterwards rather than trying to request it later on. So I've noticed a lot of the teams are doing that. Every bit of data, Sam, that you can possibly get. We're going to have a catch-up with the man himself, Carlos Sainz, who led his teammate Laia Sanz to a brilliant drive to P2.
Carlos, an unbelievable run to watch. How did it feel to drive it?
Yeah, it was, it was exciting because yesterday I couldn't do the whole track, so for me it was a kind of trying to find out things especially in the from kilometer 2.8. So yeah, I took it calm and try not to make a mess. So yeah, good.
You're second in the standings right now. Tell us about your teammate and how she's doing.
Yeah, at the moment, you know, since that a lot of things are happening, so we need to just keep going and see what is the result this afternoon, you know, because anything can happen also in the run after.
Thank you very much.
Tension building for Molly Taylor in the command centre as her teammate Johan Kristoffersen leaves the start line. The nose of the car rose just and then went back down again. That was a slight pause away from the line. Kristoffersen then moved across to the right, obviously trying to find a little bit more traction, something a bit smoother to get away. And Johan Kristoffersen, the current FIA World Rallycross champion, 3 times a winner of that championship. He's won the Swedish Touring Car Championship, he's won the Swedish Porsche Carrera Cup, he's won Superstars. This guy's circuit racer turned World Rallycross superstar, the most successful driver in the history of the World Rallycross Championship, contacted by that man, Formula 1 World Champion Nico Rosberg, signing up a hell of a pairing because Molly Taylor, Kristoffersen's teammate, has won the Australian Rally Championship outright, not the ladies class, outright overall. And I think these guys are possibly, I don't know. I can't call it yet, but sneaky ones for the top of the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't. No
like commentator's curse, Jenny.
But let's not go there, exactly. And we know how high stakes this is. We know the jeopardy that is around Extreme E. We know how difficult these cars are to really nail a lap. And it's great seeing this run directly after Carlos Sainz and Sands, because you can get a feeling for how that car is moving through the sand, through the desert, and it seems to be cutting it really nicely.
So watch for Kristoffersen on the climb. When he gets to the top of the climb before they pitch off to the right-hand side, this was where he was so committed yesterday. He hit the tuft on the right-hand side, threw it over the crest. So he's going to come around that right-hand, and now he avoids. You can see what he touched yesterday, and I think he'll jump that straight over the crest down the hill. He does. You can hear it. Tiny bit of brake at the bottom of the hill, so a little bit of a brake there to get the car cleaning through the compression. He's going to come safely through the area where Sarrazin had his problems. Crosses the road nicely, and Kristoffersen is now then on a big push on this first lap. Looking smooth, maybe looking smoother than Sainz was looking, but different driving style, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. Carlos has always had a style that kind of makes it look spectacular. Maybe not always the quickest, normally up there, but you know, it's certainly flamboyant. It looks like Kristoffersen's just a little bit calmer in the car, trying to carry that minimum speed, trying to carry the momentum.
We know he's done his homework. He messaged me on Friday, I think, no, Thursday, and was like, I finally got an onboard to look at. And he wouldn't reveal what it was, whether he'd managed to find Timo's one, or whether I suspect probably from the onboard cameras that they use on the recce. You know, Matthias Ekström, one of his rivals from the World Rallycross Championship, had said the same thing, Jenny, that they were going to spend 2 hours looking at the footage to try to get the best line possible. And, you know, there isn't much hesitation here, is there, as to what line they're on. Flies the car nicely out the bumps. This is very calculating.
Certainly is there. So you see his race partner Molly Taylor going out. She's got her insert. There's a huge difference in height between these two drivers. Johan Kristoffersen, one of the tallest drivers that we've got out there. So Molly will put that insert in as soon as they do the switch to make sure that she can reach the pedals.
Not quite as spectacular as Sainz over the road, maybe a tiny percentage of caution there in comparison. But Sam, this is looking like a good clean run, isn't it?
Really clean so far, very quick as well. I think you need to get to the gate around about 5 minutes, don't you, or just lower than 5 minutes. I think this is going to be the quickest so far.
Yeah, so we're going to make it right up this hill. Another section which we've seen being a problem for some of the drivers. Sebastian Loeb struggled with this one when he went out on his first run, and I tell you what, Kristoffersen went right to the edge of there, couldn't have taken it any further.
Flies it through the compression, kicks the rear end of the car up through there as well. I think he's got a good idea of how he wanted to come through. We were describing that as a rhythm section yesterday, just managing to keep the car on top of the crests and make it ride over the top surface. So Kristoffersen now through the narrow section. This is one of the areas which we can already see is developing some ruts. Because it's narrow, there's no choice of line, and expect that to get more and more pronounced as the weekend goes on. Kristoffersen up now towards the right-hander. On the brake, kicks the rear up, sends the car sideways, and then back on the throttle again. Great stuff here from the current. Remember, this is a current World Rallycross champion. There are only a few FIA World titles out there, and this man holds one of them right now. It's beautifully smooth onto the road. This is a really calculated run from Kristoffersen. and we'll have to see where he's going to come in. So trying to see Loeb. We think the best 4:39 it looks like for both Timmy Hansen and Sebastian Loeb, so it's going to be very, very close to a similar time. So Kristoffersen is absolutely bang on the pace here of both Hansen and Loeb. So it's going to come down to what Molly Taylor can do against Gutierrez, because of course Katie Munnings had that puncture, and then Laia Sanz too. Where was Carlos's lap time? I'm trying to see what Carlos 4:44. It looks like Carlos might have been 5 off the pace of the leading guys.
So both doors coming up for this driver change, and you can see the engineer and mechanic putting that inlay in, and it's actually Kristoffersen who's helping Molly Taylor to get in, helping with the seatbelt. That's standard for a Le Mans style car. We know that Sam's been helped and aided to do a driver's seat change as well. So this is the bit that's a bit fiddly for them. 45 seconds is the minimum time they have to take to make sure they're properly safe.
Johan there was passing in a lot of information to Molly before she left, verbally, instantly, not waiting to get on the radio when he got back. Didn't hear what it was, but there's no way, that's not just conversation, Sam, you know, that's hot tips.
And we do the same thing in endurance racing. If we notice something out there, you'll be kind of shouting, because you have to in a driver swap. You'll be saying, look, the car's doing this, this is the balance, watch out for this. Headwind at turn 2, for example.
Tricky braking zone or dirty braking zone or something like that.
Watch out for the ruts at the difficult place that we've seen. Things like this could be critical to give your teammates some information to make sure they do the best job possible.
Australian Rally Champion overall 2016, Molly Taylor. She's been on the podium in the Junior WRC in Finland, and that is the fastest of the fast, most committed rallies. Won the ERC Ladies Championship, that's the European Rally Championship, and she's won the BRC, the British Rally Championship too. Absolutely qualified to be in this car.
And she's up on time at the moment. This is really exciting, guys. This is the first time that we've seen a car that's slightly quicker than the Lewis Hamilton Loeb Gutierrez car. Currently 2 seconds faster at the moment. The lap is young and there's a long way to go, but looking good so far for Rosberg's team.
Yeah, gaining time, it was 1.6, it's now 2.0. Our timing screens update very quickly, so I'm wondering if the timing is sorted via GPS. We'll get the details of that and find out exactly how we get it so accurately, so quickly. You can see it on screen as well. So there's the elapsed time is the total time for both drivers, including the driver change, and on the right-hand side is the gap. Now, obviously, the gaps of the guys who've run already, those guys have finished, and then we've got a live gap for Kristoffersen and Taylor on the second column.
So Taylor taking the far right-hand line in this as she goes up the hill towards the big drop zone, where she'll go 45-degree angle. They get air when they go down there. She's experienced at this. She'll go in committed and hard. Let's have a little look. Yeah, taking the upper line.
Full jump. Yes, thank you, Molly. Get it done.
I feel like there should be people at the bottom with scorecards holding them up with like a number 10 or a number 8 on it for
commitment.
Yeah.
Down towards the road crossing. This was the tricky section for Sarazan. No lifting for Molly Taylor through there. Good job. I'm just trying to think what time of day it is in Australia and whether or not, you know, it was very early when we started here in the UK. Of course, Saudi Arabia is a couple of hours ahead of us. Myself, Jenny and Sam are based in a London studio. The rest of the team are out on site, and that's to try and keep the footprint of people travelling to the events down. There's no spectators there, of course. You guys are all able to watch from home, and hope you're enjoying it.
I reckon it's about 5:30 in the afternoon, just about the time to put the barbie on.
That sounds ideal to me. Couple of beers maybe, and watch a bit of motorsport. Kristoffersen back in the command centre. There is the X44 team who've been stood in there for what, an hour and a half now. You know, they're not going to be hoping to get beaten, but the only advantage left if they are beaten is they can go back to the tent and chill out. It's as the leaders, they have to stay in the command centre, and they've been the leaders since run number 1, don't forget. But Molly Taylor is now 3.6 seconds up. Oh, rear end flies high. Full commitment for Taylor through that section. Just as the gap went up, she's still trying to hang on to it. She came around the left-hander, she's just held on. That moment continued over both crests and into the left. Wow, that's committed, Sam.
She's found a ton of time by doing that, though. She's gone from 3 seconds to 6 minutes. 6 seconds, sorry, 6 seconds up, so it looked dramatic, and do you know what? It paid dividends.
That's a risky strategy, though, isn't it? 3 seconds. I mean, you can see where the 3 seconds came from, but I wouldn't fancy rolling the dice like that on every lap. But go on, Molly Taylor, absolutely lit.
There's no strategy here, there's no reserve here, there is just going for it. 12 points on offer if you finish this qualifying round first, all the way down to 9th, and 4 points. So this isn't just about getting through into the top 3 for the final, for the next race, but this is all about, you know, points as well.
Championship points. Taylor beautifully through that rhythm section like Kristoffersen was as well. Watch her pitch it into the left-hander now through that sandy section.
This is a great drive by Taylor. I'm really impressed by her. Oh, got a little bit bogged down there.
You know what I'm interested in, though, as well, is the fact that clearly Loeb and Gutierrez are quick. We know that you know, Hansen and Munnings were going really well. But when we start to see clean sessions for more cars, I think we're going to find that actually the pace between these top guys and girls is really pretty close.
There's not going to be much in it at all, is there, Andrew? It's going to be super close as we see Molly Taylor coming towards the end of the lap, so committed, only 4.5 seconds in it. She was up to 6, it's dropped down just a little bit.
They'll analyse that, Sam. They'll go back, won't they, and look at the 2 runs and go, right, look, you gained here and you lost here. But now as they come down towards the finish, it was 4.6 seconds quicker. Going to go left-hander into that last gate. Going to try to come to the finish line now ahead of it. Oh, they're losing time, 3.76. I think she's going to have enough, though, to the top of the table. Surely Kristoffersen and Molly Taylor take the lead. 4.5 seconds ahead of Loeb and Gutierrez. A relaxed smile from Kristoffersen, and there's time to be gained there because they're going to look back at Taylor's run.
Your teammate in the command center.
And we can see
now has the fast lap. Please join your teammate in the command center.
There we go. Loeb and Gutierrez are going to head back, and we're going to see Kristoffersen and Taylor into that slot. Race control to say, get yourselves in there. You're leading.
It's brutal, isn't it?
It is really,
yeah. Stood there waiting, and all of a sudden, boom! You're
off you go.
Out of here.
Off you go.
Love that. Right, let's hear it from Nico Rosberg. Here's the man behind this team. Just set the fastest lap. Fascinating to hear what he has to say.
Rosberg, Team Rosberg, please.
Former F1 champion, current Rosberg X Racing principal and manager owner now. Nico Rosberg, brilliant to speak to you. You've just come first.
No, it's really nice to get the racing going. Of course, it's still a long weekend. You know, it's only early days. It's the first qualifying now of 2 today. Tomorrow we have a couple of races to go. But it's a really good start for us like this. I think learned a lot. Both drivers, you know, felt comfortable in the car. So I'm very pleased so far.
You've been in the command center watching both your drivers race out there. Tell us your thoughts on their run.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a new experience being on this side. Usually, I was always in the car, so I'm not sure what is more stressful, being in the car or outside. But of course, no, I mean, I have as much adrenaline probably as the drivers in the car, because of course I want us all to do well as a team, and it's very exciting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right-hand side of your screen, that is the current voting for grid play. So fans have been voting on social media, and you can see that at the minute it's Lewis Hamilton's team who lead with 21% of the vote, and they will have the opportunity to choose the best grid slot should they be in the main final on Sunday. Off the line then, Matthias Ekström in the car for Abt Cupra. 2016 FIA World Rallycross Champion. We've got 3 of the 4 of them are here. Solberg is missing. Petter, where are you? I know he showed an interest in the series actually, but Ekström out there, and again, I expect this to be fully calculated. 2 hours spent looking at onboard. Smooth run yesterday in shakedown. Interested to see how Claudia Hurtgen gets on as well, because most of Claudia's background is in circuit racing, Jenny.
Yeah, she's coming at it from a very different angle, but she's had a bit of time in that car now, and she's certainly learned from watching everybody else out on track. That's one of the bonuses of going later in this run. Yes, the course is cutting up, and you can see them bumping over those dunes, but I tell you what, you can learn from every car that's gone out there before you.
A word for Cupra as well, of course. Cupra was is basically a shoot-off from the Spanish brand Seat, and Cupra is their name now for the performance department of their cars. I've been lucky enough to have a go in a couple of them. They've changed the bodywork slightly, I believe, on this car, and I think you'll find that also Chip Ganassi's got to have done the same thing, because they've got a bit of backing as well from a manufacturer. So that's the only change that the manufacturers are allowed to make to the cars when they come into this series, is they can change the look of the car if they want to make it look a little bit like what they're selling on the road. And I'm expecting more manufacturers to want to get stuck into this, because it is exciting. Up towards the big drop now for Ekstrom. Is he going to go over this? Listen for the air. Here we go. Listen to the throttle over the right-hander. Through the gate, listen. Yeah, you hear the revs rise. Air for Ekstrom coming down the hill. And now about to cross the road at Sarazan's danger point. Here we go again. Just watch this. Super smooth, nicely executed.
And that this camera is giving you such an insight into what the driver is seeing and feeling. And Sam Bird is here, FE driver, and this is a real insight, isn't it, from that camera angle into just going over the top. You've just got to have full courage.
I'm so tense watching this. I'm so tense. But Andrew, what you were saying about the grooves, we're really now starting to see that more all over the course now. There is a definitive line that everybody seems to be taking.
And as we say, that Ekstrom heads off slightly to the right. Yeah. That's just commentator's curse, Sam. That's the official welcome to the commentators' club. But yeah, you're right. And I think the other thing here is that as those ruts build up, Sam, that the risk that if you get offline, digging in is the most likely reason you will roll any car. You know, I often hear people say, oh, I was worried it would roll because we were doing 80 miles an hour. The speed isn't relevant. It's what you hit with the side of the tyre, isn't it? And when you're hitting these ruts sideways, there's more chance of turning the car over as the track develops.
Absolutely. I did a rally course in Finland a couple of years ago, and you know what? I was much quicker when the track was brand new in the morning. As soon as the ruts came in, it was far more difficult to drive.
Because you get out of the rut?
Absolutely. You got out of the rut, the rear would be all over the place. I didn't understand what the car was doing underneath me.
That's the moment that we saw last time with Sainz going around there, really committed, and from Kristoffersson. So this is the part where you can really seem to make up some time on your competitors and your rivals.
I'm loving Sainz's line through there. Sainz is the winner for the road crossing, isn't he? I'm kind of looking at that now and thinking, can we give an extra championship point for clearing it? Because I think it's possible. I think it's possible.
Well, you have to vote for it, won't you? If you really,
that's the kind of fan vote I want to see. Is who is the most sendy is what I want to see.
Most sendy, is that now a word?
That's 100%. There's definitely a word in off-road, Jenny. You know, it's sendy. You got Ekstrom's getting sendy. Down through the dip now, another rutted section here. This is narrow. I can't see people choosing a different line through there, and you can see particularly in the braking zone. So when they load the tyres up, that's Ekstrom clipping the left-hand side, hooks a wheel just over. Suspension travel on these Odyssey 21 cars is incredible. So they can take some pretty exciting lines. But that area is definitely going to get cut up. Anywhere you're braking is going to dig out.
Yeah, remember, these cars are going to travel the world on their ship, the good ship St. Helena, and it's every car will be, look at that, just losing traction at the back of the car a little bit, just wiggling around over to the burr, kicking up the sand, going back in, and this is going towards the switch zone. But yeah, these cars were designed to tackle all sorts of different surfaces. They'll be on ice later. They'll be everywhere around the world.
Ekstrom is bang on the pace here, absolutely on it again. So we've seen 4:39s, it looks like to me from our timing screen, 4:42, so he's just 3 seconds off the fastest pace. At the moment, the fastest pace, I think, is Timmy Hansen. It looks like a 4:39.035. Forgive us if we're making mistakes. It's the first time we're looking at these timing screens ourselves. Brand new championship for everyone. So Timmy's lap really impressive.
Yeah.
Timmy, like Johan, maybe not looking the most committed, and that's that driving style thing again. When you look at Sainz, he looked the most committed, but it wasn't the fastest lap. Sainz was 5 seconds off that quickest pace. So Ekstrom got 3 guys on 4:39s, which was Kristoffersson, Loeb, and Timmy Hansen. And I think that's staggering. Over 8.8 kilometres, Sam. What do you think about that?
That's outrageous. I mean, tenths of a second separating them over sand and desert, rocks, ruts, everything.
A tap on the back of the car from Ekstrom for Hurtgen as she gets ready to head out onto her run. So Claudia Hurtgen waiting for the time to run out. 45 seconds before she can go, she's looking across and she gets the okay from the team and she goes.
Really interesting though, no communication between them. Last time out we saw Kristoffersen giving Taylor loads of information, trying to give her as much help. That one, a very different style of approaching it. No information between Ekström and Hertgen, but there she is, she's away.
Hertgen was on the gas there slightly early. I'll say gas, you know, it's a term, it's electric. But she was on the throttle early there, but I think, Sam, she was close enough to the exit that she's not going to get a penalty for that. There's a penalty for breaking the limit. I think she was out.
I think she was okay. I think she was okay.
Shouldn't have lifted then. You know, you commit to it already.
Penalty 5 seconds per kilometre over the limit that you do, so we'll keep an eye on that one.
Hansen and Munning sitting in P4, having had that puncture. Button and Arlen Kotlinski had a stop out on track, so a little fault which Arlen Kotlinski skillfully restarted the car with. Sarazan at the bottom of the table, you can see big shunt. He had a big roll at the bottom of the drop at the road crossing, which you'll have heard us mention with several other drivers. Top of the table though, Sainz and Sands with a good run. Sainz was spectacular, slightly slower though than Loeb and Kristoffersen. Hansen we know was on the pace, I say, but they had that puncture. All to play for, and now Ekström we know is almost bang on the pace of Kristoffersen and Loeb. He's ahead of Sainz in terms of pace, so down to Hertgen.
So exactly, I think Hertgen, the aim for her now is to try and beat the Sainz car. I think the Loeb lap and the Kristoffersen lap are slightly out of reach. We're seeing now that she's nearly 9 seconds back now. The game is going to be just to try and get that third spot.
Yeah, she can't lose too much time now, otherwise they'll find themselves slipping down the leaderboard, and you want to be in the top 3 ideally when you're looking at progressing through to the racing tomorrow. Remember, we've got more qualifying for you later, and I have to say this first part of qualifying has been fascinating.
Jenny, it's interesting, isn't it, to think we're seeing the live timing. Obviously, the drivers are not. So, Sam, for me, to feel your own pace can be quite difficult, particularly in an open course like this, rather than a track where you know if you braked early, because you just know. It's a feeling, I brake too early, I brake too late. But here it's harder to read. For me, I think as this develops, you might find the first driver or the team member in the command centre on the radio and going, you are losing time, or not, you know, to allow the driver to gauge. Yeah, if you let's say you're the last car to go and you had an 8-second lead, you could be on the radio going, wind it in, you've got 8 seconds. Once you've won the session, you've won the session. You don't have to win it by a mile. The points are, but then it helps when you add the times up later.
Yeah, we're not having any radio at the moment,
no.
Radio comms for us to listen to see what they're talking about, but absolutely that is one of the key things that they will be talking about. Bear in mind as well, they will have some delta in terms of information in the car, so they do have information in the car. She would have seen the lap time that her teammate did, and she's watched now the previous 6 cars go out, and she'll know roughly what the lap times are, so she can get a rough idea of where she's at right now.
You're on the money,
18
Sam.
seconds down.
Yeah, you're
It's
on the
gonna be
money.
close.
The target is top 3, isn't it? So there's no question that Gutierrez and Taylor were quicker, because Loeb and Kristoffersen's lap times were almost identical.
Nowhere near as committed through that area as we saw Taylor or
Taylor
Gutierrez.
I think Taylor was the most committed through there of anyone. I really do. I mean, it was super impressive. There's Matthias Ekström with the guys from Abt. He's worked with them from way back in his DTM days. Of course, a DTM champion as well. Ekström competing in rallying recently too. He did the Dakar actually earlier this year. Ekström did the Dakar in a buggy to get more experience of these kind of conditions, and that's just exactly the kind of prep I'd expect from a guy like Matthias, who another one of those drivers who leaves no stone unturned. And I think they'll be clips the flag on the inside.
Not the ideal way to pass through that gate, I think, but Hertgen continues on, and she's got to try and claw back some time from here. Unfortunately for her, this move across from circuit racing has been a little bit painful for her, but she'll be gaining information all the time, learning the circuit, learning what she's got to do with the car, and it just looks like she's a little bit ragged now.
7 seconds now, the gap to Sands and Sainz. So Sands and Sainz were plus 32.66. Look at the bottom of that table and you'll see they're plus 24.8, but it was going up. She is now approaching the end of the lap, so this is going to be close. All to play for. Oh, sideways in a roll! Massive off! That's huge! Claudia Hertgen has had a huge crash! A huge crash for Claudia Hurtgen. The front suspension is broken just as we were saying there was all to play for. It's gone wrong. Red flag immediately. Team on the radio to check that Claudia is okay. That is, of course, the most important thing. We'll bring you news on that as soon as we have it. But red flag, red flag. Let's take another look at the incident then for Claudia Hurtgen coming down the hill. This is the narrow sandy section. All good here. No, it's not. And she just gets too sideways on the... But look at the way it digs in. And Sam, that's the rutted section, Jenny, that we've been talking about getting more and more rutted because there's no choice online.
Do you know what? I think that started further back. I think we saw her clip, didn't we, a gate further back, and I just think she didn't have control of that car and it was controlling her in a way, and she got to that point, and look, you can just see it barreling over once,
it doesn't
twice.
It doesn't actually come down on the roof on either of those and only rotates across it there. There's a... How much damage is on that car? I mean, you know...
Just too hard to call from this point of view, isn't it? When you see it like that, it's a really tough one.
It's again, if we're teaching you about off-road motorsport, it's about whether or not the roll cage is damaged. Of course, first of all, it's about whether the driver is injured. Claudia Hurtgen is out of the car. That's not to say she's not in pain, but she's out of the car, and that is that's great news.
I'm joined by Florian of Team Abt Cupra. Massive relief to see the images of Claudia walk away from that.
Yes, clear. These were the best pictures of the weekend and of the day. Hopefully, or we saw that Claudia is out of the car. She could stand. We have no further info, but looks like she's okay. And that's the most important thing, because big accident, and after such a big accident, it took quite a while until to see the pictures that she's out of the car. And we are really happy, and yeah, hopefully she's not injured.
You were following every moment from the command center here. Do you know exactly what went wrong, what line?
We saw it on TV picture, yes. We were on a good lap. Matthias handed over to Claudia. She did her first sector. And then we need to see what happened exactly, but you could see she rolled several times. But why, we need to analyze in detail.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that's Florian Modlinger, the tech director. Now this is a different angle we can see of Claudia. She comes down into that thick grooved section and she just loses the rear end.
She gets the car steps sideways and unfortunately then instantly digs in, Sam.
If you look again, the rear just hits a little bump, goes up in the air, lands, and then that sends her to the right. At the same time she's going through ruts, she then can't correct. The tyres have dug in and it's sent her into this enormous barrel roll.
Well, great news that it's fine. Claudia Hurtgen got out the car. She was all right. Her radio wasn't working, but she is all okay after that big barrel roll, that big crash. So great news coming out from the team.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic to hear she's okay. She dug in just slightly, and we nearly saw Christine Giampolazonca or Christina GZ do the same just now. A little bit sideways, a couple of ruts on the run up here. You can see where the cars are on that steep incline, and now this is the big jump drop off. She gets a little bit low, but not too low. She's able to stay in the gas. A little bit of air as she comes down to the bottom of the slope. And this is the first team, Jenny, that's chosen to send out the female driver first of all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tactic. It's all strategy. You can do which one you want. So it's up to the teams to make that call and decide what they want to do. If you were watching earlier, this is where Sarazan had his big roll as well. No problems for Christine. She manages to get through in this Hispano-Suiza Excite Energy team.
That's interesting as well. I've just noticed on the timing board, so they've slotted up where the DNF, the moment that she passed where Sarazan was, she slotted up, meaning if she was to have a crash now, they would be classified ahead of Sarazan because they got further around the course. So, of course, they've now got to get another lap and a half round before they get to the point. Hurtgen crashed right towards the end of her run, which was the second lap. Once they're past there, even if they got a DNF, they'd end up in sixth.
Windscreen wipers on. Not sure she intended to do that, but never mind, they are off again. Now you can see the lines that have already been taken so far this morning. This is where the deep ruts are starting to come in. The track really starting to age, I suppose, as we go through the day.
It's going to develop through the entire weekend, definitely. On the right-hand side, you can see 100 kilometers an hour. 300 kilowatts of torque being delivered at this moment from the two electric motors on this Odyssey 21 electric SUV. on the brakes early, up into that bump section. We've seen a couple of people, Molly Taylor it was, wasn't it, who went through there, Sam, absolutely on it.
Yeah, the rear looked like it was going to overtake the front, didn't it, over the top of it. But this has been a composed lap so far. No real mistakes. It's not the fastest that we've seen, but
is that quite sensible?
Were we expecting it to be as quick as Kristoffersen? No, but it's a sensible lap nonetheless.
The thing is, the approach now that we were saying earlier on, that if you were running late, you've got the form of everybody in front of you. You know that Ekstrom, Hertgen, Sarazen, Chadwick retired. You know that Button, Arlen Kotlinski stopped on course for a while. You know that Hansen Munnings had a puncture. So actually going, do you know what? I reckon I can shoot definitely for top 5 because Michaela Arlen Kotlinski was at a standstill for 30 seconds. So suddenly, Sam, actually your results are looking pretty good even if you take it steady.
Sorry, Andrew. The ruts in the road now are looking really, really tricky. We're seeing this car now really struggling in the ruts and struggling for grip and fighting to try and stay online.
And it's important to note actually that the running order for this session was done by a draw. So she's coming down now to the section where Claudia Hertgen had the crash. So let's watch through here. Is she going to be cautious, listen to the throttle? She's not really cautious, to be fair. Got the car a little bit sideways, nothing too out of shape though, and safely down to the bottom of that hill. But yeah, so you've got to judge your pace according to where you're running on the road, and these guys in the draw ended up running low down, ended up running in P8, just one car left to go after them.
Yeah, and that's the Chip Ganassi car. They had a big incident yesterday, took off some of the car bodywork. They've managed to fix it overnight. That team pulling an all-nighter. We'll talk about that in a little while as Christine comes towards the flags, which denote the back entry towards the switch zone. She comes back in there. Little wriggle.
Jenson Button's lap time was 5 minutes on his run. The top guys were 4:39. This is looking like a 5:20. So it's a little way. It's around 40 seconds off the pace of the likes of Johan Kristoffersen. But Johan Kristoffersen is a 3-time World Rallycross champion. Yeah, there's no harm in talking about the difference in experience. Interestingly, Christine loosens the belts but doesn't undo the buckle, and the reason for that is if she undoes the buckle, I think she will be done by the regulations for not being harnessed into the car while the car is moving. We also saw the bungee top left, and you can see that it's pulled the harnesses up, so those bungees are there to hold this harness up for Ollie, and loosening Ollie struggling to get in the car slightly now, loosening the harnesses because Ollie is bigger than Christine, so that he will now need to get those harnesses on. Crutch belt is the hardest part.
That's interesting, as you said, because it is the male taking over from female,
yeah.
So they've gone the other way. So instead of just managing to release or tighten the straps, they've had to go the other way, which is difficult. Oh, let's listen in.
And the great thing was, Jenny, she loosened the harnesses in the right way. So the harness is still plugged into her lap belt, meaning that she can pull on the harness and pull it up.
She's just trying to signal to Ollie. She's like, pull, 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 and make sure you're okay, make sure you're buckled in. She's so pumped.
That's a slow getaway. I'm sorry, that was slow there. The team were giving them the countdown. She's obviously really relieved to have got a good, clean lap in, no problems. We know some teams have had issues, so it was a good approach. Ollie's now got to go out there and have a big push here and see what he can do. But yeah, great tactics. She'd loosened the belts before she undid it. If you undo the belt first of all, you've got to pull on the belt in 2 directions. If you loosen it while it's still tight, you've only got to pull on it in 1 direction. A lot of practice gone into that.
I was going to say, they have been practicing for these driver switch zones. Yes, there's a minimum time, but it's about efficiency. It's about making sure you know your process in motorsport, and that's what they've done here. So, yeah, I mean, this is the first time they've done it in a live qualifying situation. So there's bound to be things they learn every time they get into this car. So let's see what Oliver Bennett can do
Ollie
in this Odyssey
to run
21.
a full face helmet, reflective dark visor, and Sam, the light I think's changed. It's mad, but you know, these cars have been on track now for a couple of hours. The sun has changed considerably. If you think how much shadow there was on the course first thing this morning.
I think the track was in a much better state early, but the light was worse. And I think things have completely 180'd there. I think the light now is a lot better, a lot easier to see. The visibility is better all around the circuit with shadows to going into full daylight. But the track and the ruts have got a lot worse. So there's a trade-off.
Similar trade-off, I guess, to running first on the road in Rome.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to develop, isn't it?
I'm not looking forward to Group 1 in Rome.
Are you in Group 1 in Rome, then?
I'm in Group 1 in Rome,
oh,
yeah.
Dear.
Top 6 in the championship are out first. I'm currently second, so not fun.
Ollie Bennett taking a very different line. I don't know if that was a mistake, if he got a little bit off track, or if he went for it and just decided he wanted to take a very different approach to this, the drop-off. This is the bit everybody's talking about, a little bit like a ski slope. Let's see how Ollie does. Over the top.
We asked our director, how steep is it? Because I say we're not there, and he came back with, it's a black run. So if you're a skier, you'll know exactly what that means. And I thought that was a great way of describing it. I mean, I actually think you could potentially ski down that. You know, it's why not?
Sandboard down it, that would be mega.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to do that now.
So in the middle of your screen, you can see sand hazard is what it's telling you, and that's counting down to it. Everything done by GPS. On the right-hand side, throttle and brake. On the left-hand side, torque and traction. And he's heading through the sand hazard now, I'm guessing, up towards the top here.
Ooh.
Taking it steady over the crest.
I think he missed the gate.
Yeah, did he miss the gate or not?
Yeah, I think he went round to the right of the gate, which isn't what he was meant to do.
So difficult though, Jenny, so difficult when these guys have only had one, if not two, runs through what is quite a long course, especially if this isn't normally your discipline.
Yeah, so he's rallycross driver, and it's slightly different discipline. Andrew Coley, the man to talk rallycross for you, because he's done it for years, knows every single driver on the grid.
Everyone, this is race control. Car 4-2 is under investigation for speeding in the switch zone. Speeding in the switch zone, under investigation, car 4-2.
Right, so that's either Christine Jampolonka on the way in, Jampolonka, or Ollie Bennett on the way out. But interesting, I thought that was going to be a message from race control saying they'd missed a gate, but either way, they're in a spot of bother. Now, if they were speeding in the pit lane, it is 5 seconds per kilometre, and Christine, you can see, is disappointed by that. A fist pump in the wrong way. Not happy with that, but if they've broken the speed limit, generally they've broken the speed limit. It's a hard rule, end of.
Yeah, there's no discussion there. I did a stewarding course at the beginning of this year, actually.
Did you?
So, yeah, it was really interesting, and I know that Max Verstappen had to do one as kind of one of his penalties, but you learn an incredible amount about why they make the decisions they do and all of that.
Max do that.
Cool.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely. Was it a penalty for you, or did you just do it for fun?
I did it for fun because I'm that kind of a gal.
Oh, wow, Jenny, I can imagine you being a steward. I mean, you'd like that, wouldn't you?
I've got all my highlighter pens with me, and both Andrew and Sam were taking the mickey out of me earlier.
And because you love electric mobility. Absolutely.
What can I say?
There you go.
Right, through the sandy section now, Ollie Bennett coming towards the end of the run. He's got this big dip. Look how much that's cut up. That's changed a lot since the start of the session. He's on the descent now down towards the flat plane at the end of the course. Rear of the car went the wrong way there. You can see he then had to wait to get on the throttle as he came through the gate. This is the section where Hurtgen had her problem. Bennett will try and keep the car straight and steady as he comes through the exit. The ruts are deep on the way into that where they're braking, and I think that's what Hurtgen's got wrong. In the ruts on the brakes, I think the car's moved just a little bit more than she thought and then dug in. Bennett now with a couple of gates to go, and then he's going to drop down to that road to the finish.
Attention all teams. Stewart's decision on car 4-2 is a 75-second penalty for speeding on pit lane.
That's massive.
45 kilometers an hour.
45 kilometers an hour, so they're giving him a 75-second, a 1:15 penalty. That is a disaster because there's no risk. There's nothing really. Okay, a tenth you could gain maybe by braking super late. That is a big mistake for these guys, and unfortunately, Ollie Bennett going to come across the line. Where would it have put them? It would have put them in P5, but add the penalty to that, and it drops them down into P6. So unfortunately, with the penalty, they drop back behind Button and Arlen Kotlinski, who are at a standstill on the circuit.
Yeah, frustrating for them. So it all comes down to the last car in a moment's time, because if the Chip Ganassi car can knock them down, you don't want to be in the bottom three, really. So let's get an interview and find out what's going on down on the ground in Saudi Arabia with Layla.
Over. Christine Jampolonka, you committed to a very bold and confident run, but we've just received news of a 75-second penalty for speeding in the switch zone. Give me your reaction.
Yeah, they just told me. I don't know, I'm pretty sure I did my time, so maybe the button wasn't on after he left or something. I don't know, I'll check with Ollie now. But
and tell me a little bit about your lap as well. You seemed very happy when you arrived in the command center.
Yeah, I'm happy to just get here. It was pretty gnarly. I was just trying to keep the car on track, and it was awesome though. I love it. I enjoyed every second.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, disappointment there then for the Hispano-Suiza team, falling foul of the rules. A big penalty for speeding in that switch zone. And they will just have to hope that they can stay ahead of the Chip Ganassi car.
So for the first time then, it was the female driver who went first for Hispano-Suiza X Energy. Christine Giampoli-Zonca heading out for her run. Ollie Bennett was going to take over the car second, but problems for those guys with speeding in the changeover zone. This was Christine coming into that swap point. The road towards the end of the session, Jenny, not ideal because it was a good clean run. You didn't take any risks and there was a lot to gain by the people who'd already had issues.
Yeah, I just wanted to try and see at what point they got the speeding penalty, but we were unable to see that. And maybe it was on takeoff and launch, but very hard to tell. But yeah, they were doing well. Look there, Ollie Bennett just taking a bit of a different line, trying to avoid this section where it's really cut up.
I think there was good grip there on the gravel. Yeah. I think there's a good traction. And he managed basically to find that traction up the hill. But, well, good stuff for Zonca and Bennett, but the penalty cost them. We're going to go down and have a chat with Johan Kristoffersson.
Very good. I mean, I had a good run, quite nice and steady, and yeah, left the car to Molly in a good position, and from there on, yeah, she did the job, so put us on P1.
You've been here in the command center watching your competition. Tell us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it is a little bit what we expected, that it's very, very rough and very easy to make a mistake. So unfortunately, we have seen some quite bad accidents. So yeah, we try to stay on a steady line, but at the same time, it's very difficult to judge how much to back off and still be risk limitation. So it's a very, very thin line. But yeah, so far we have done a good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Kristoffersson as calm as ever. You know, so far we've done a good job. There is a long way to go this weekend. I think because if you look at the amount of risk there is in one run,
1 minute.
It's tricky.
1 minute.
Super tricky. You've seen lots of mistakes already. Incidents, thrills, spills. They're P1 at the moment. They've got to be feeling happy.
Yeah, definitely. Good job by them. There's one pairing who can take it away. There's Sarah Price putting her lid on in the background, and Kyle Leduc is out on the start line. Looking forward to this. The final car is on the line for the first ever session of qualifying from Extreme E, from Al Ula in Saudi Arabia, and these guys had their problems yesterday. Kyle Leduc and Sarah Price. It was a technical issue for Sarah and a fairly sizable shunt for Kyle Leduc. He said he'd taken the split line. He jumped on the radio and he said, I've broken the right side off of the car, and that was quite the repair job, but they've got it done. They are here, and we are really looking forward to seeing this. These guys could well be towards the very top of the timesheets, and I think Kristoffersson and Taylor will know that.
So waiting for the lights to go, and there they are. Kyle Leduc takes the start, the last car in this part of our qualifying session. He knows exactly what he's going to go out there and do. Leduc getting a nice launch, the All-American team from Chip Ganassi racing down to gate 1. This is the big expanse where the desert gets really, really wide in racing. 3 cars going down here. It's going to look absolutely incredible tomorrow.
Now, this is another one of our manufacturer-backed teams. They're backed by Hummer. And as you can see, they've actually changed the bodywork on the front of the car, and I think it looks awesome. I really do. I think it looks cool. I kind of hope we might see those lights on at some point, Sam. You know, maybe I don't want to use up any of that valuable
I like to hum it when I was young.
Yeah.
So, Kyle and Sarah have not seen past gate 4, I think. So both of them are going into the unknown a little bit on this lap. So, you know, there's quite a few cars that are out. One that's done got a penalty. I think they've just got to be sensible.
I think also you have to look at how the course has changed and evolved from when the first car went out with Sebastian Loeb this morning to where we are now. It feels like at some point it's a totally different course.
These two will be fine with that. You know, they're used to doing the Baja 1000, the Mint 400. We're talking trophy trucks. You know, oh, Kyle with a big risk again. I think he's 7 times short course champion. champion, Pro 4 champion, and the reigning champion at the minute. But he is definitely a risk taker. Took a risk yesterday in Shakedown, it didn't pay off. But you know, is this going to be win it or bin it? You know, is this one of those times where they're going to look to get to the top of the table? Because that will be some recovery after yesterday's issues. Watch this. Yeah, little jump, okay, and I'm interested to see how committed he is where we know Sarrazin had a problem. This might give us a barometer of the risk-taking. So I want to see how he does the road crossing on board. Yeah. Do you know what, it's a mix, Sam. What do you think? There's a bit of risk here and there in terms of line choice, but then there's also the lack of seat time.
I think because of what happened yesterday, the lack of seat time, the fact that it's race one, I think Kyle and Sarah would have sat down with their great team boss, Chip Ganassi, and had a discussion, said, look, guys, we need to get the car around, obviously try and be competitive, but we've got to do the laps tomorrow. So that may be what we're seeing today. Sort of measured aggression.
You'd certainly be having a word, wouldn't you, if you were out there and you were the team boss? You'd be like, guys, we've got to get around. And now you're going ninth.
But Chip Ganassi is one of the best bosses in the business. I mean, really, I admire the guy. He's superb.
What makes him so good, Sam?
Well, look at the trophy cabinet. That's what makes it so good. I mean, so that speaks for itself. But, you know, he's experienced enough to speak to his drivers. As we see Alejandro Agag, the boss of Formula E, the boss of Extreme E, probably the innovator in motorsport over the last decade.
I'm loving the fact that he's standing there wide-eyed, and I reckon he's enjoying this. This has been some show, considering this is the first bit of live action we've had from Extreme E. If I was the boss, I'd be going, wow, this was more than I thought.
It's not been boring, has it?
No.
I mean, this has flown by. We've seen everything so far.
You get a bang for your buck with this, right? Don't you? And it is fantastic. You could just see Kyle wrestling with that car. For someone who isn't adept with rally or rallycross, just tell us about the little marker on the steering wheel, because you don't get markers on a steering wheel in a Formula One car.
Basically, the marker on the front is to let you know exactly where the wheels are pointing. So really, you shouldn't be using, even in a rally or a rallycross car, you'll very rarely use less than what I would call fixed input. So if you hold your hands on either side of the wheel and turn them 90 degrees to the left, sorry, 180 left or 180 right, that's really the limit of what you should be using. But just occasionally, things get out of shape, and in off-road motorsport, you know, you can end up with damage to the front suspension. You can end up with getting sideways and using more lock than you thought, and the yellow line on the wheel is just an indicator as to straight. Sometimes it's an indicator that things are not as you think they are at the front, because if it's off to an inch to the left, then you know that last cut that you took was a bit too much.
Thanks, good explanation.
No worries, no worries.
You saw Sarah Price there, waiting to get in the switch zone, of course, last time out. The mistake there led to the penalty for the other team, so they'll know and have learned not to fall into that.
If you want to see the incident that Kyle LeDuc had yesterday, then head to Extreme E's social media and you'll be able to see the onboard from... He was absolutely flying, Sam, wasn't he?
He was, but you're now seeing what I was speaking about earlier, the inexperience on this second half of the lap. He hasn't seen it. He went off like a scolded cat at the beginning, and now 4 minutes 38, we're not even into the last couple of corners. You know, I think that he's had to tread carefully this second half of the lap.
And sideways there where Claudia Hurtgen had her issue, so Kyle LeDuc winding it in a bit, and that's fine, as we say, because we've seen issues for we've seen the penalty, we've seen the stop. Barton and Kotlinski, Arlen Kotlinski, are actually sitting pretty in P5, considering they stopped on the course for nearly 30 seconds. Definitely, this is a good one for the hashtag Never Give Up, because you'd be thinking, oh, we've had an absolute shocker. Certainly, Hansen and Mullings will probably be thinking that, and there they are, P4.
Oh, superb. I mean, yeah, when we saw the puncture, you thought, oh, they'll be down the back. When we saw Jensen's car stop on the track, we thought they'd be at the back, but they're not. They're midfield at the moment.
So this going into the switch zone, as we can see, Kyle bringing it round to the left through the final gate of his drive. As they say, they can almost use this as a little bit of a sighter, in a way.
I wonder if he's got an issue. This is slower than I would expect from Kyle, even being careful. He was wrestling with the wheel on the way in there. I want to hear if he says anything to Sarah as he gets in and out the car, so hold tight.
Well, the car repaired overnight. The team doing a really good job to even get it up and running.
Steering looks over slightly to the left.
Stay in it, go through the procedure for redoing it. Go.
Let's listen in and see if we hear anything between them. Kyle's resetting something in the car. We're right, there's an issue. I thought so. Just a little bit too much time lost on the second half. There, it's the power steering. I'm almost sure that was the power steering. If you looked at Leduc as he came in, he was gripping the wheel really hard, and I think the power steering was gone on the second half of that lap, at which point you can't risk the big inputs because you won't make the big save if the car gets sideways. She said, I can't hear it. She's probably listening. If it's hydraulic, I can't remember if it's hydraulic or electric, she'll be listening to hear the pump potentially on the power steering. So she said, I can't hear it. We then heard the whirring noise. Look, we're using the best information we got. I could be completely wrong, but there was definitely something wrong with the car because they've thrown away trying to do a quick switch, and instead they fixed the car first of all. That was the most important thing.
She needs to go.
Go, go!
Oh, the team is screaming at her, go, go, go. Because they've had such a long pit stop, there was no need to wait. She didn't need to wait. She could have got on with it straight away.
She's just trying to suss out, isn't she, whether there's an issue that she's going to have to now carry.
Good.
Wait.
Early. Yeah.
There we go. So I was listening in to hear Kyle Leduc, to hear what he said. Unfortunately, what he said is I would describe it as a technical appraisal of how that lap went. So apologies for that, because what he said was not that technical. But it was a good indicator, Sam, that did not go according to plan, I'm afraid.
No, it didn't. But it went better than yesterday.
Yes.
That's a positive, every cloud.
Unfortunately, potentially the issue's there. If you think the car's been repaired, you know what it's like. I'm sure you've had a shunt before. Maybe not you, one of your teammates.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're a highly skilled racer. But when a car's been repaired overnight or even in an endurance race, you have to park it for a half hour, 40 minutes while something's done. You then go back out. It's like, is the problem fixed? And when you've torn a corner off the car, potentially there is legacy issues which come with that, which you don't find until you get back out on circuit.
Absolutely. It's quite common, the fact that if you do have a big one, then the next time you drive it, there might still be some small niggles within the car, and we've just seen that just now. However, there's still quite a few cars that have had issues. They're not going to be at the back.
Just keep going.
Just keep going, exactly.
Well, the worst you're going to be here is P7, and I'm afraid Ekstrom, Herc and Saracen and Chadwick, with the DNF, when you add their second time onto it, they're in that bottom race, I'm afraid. They're going to be in the shootout race. So we're basically, whoever is in P7 at the end of this is going to be fighting with Ollie and Christine in P6, maybe, to see whether they get in. Because if you look at the gap, so the guy, Button, 12:22.46 with Arlen Kotlinski in P5. There's a big gap then, thanks to the penalty that Giampizola, Zonka, GZ, and Bennett picked up. So really, I think it's going to be about making the top six. As you make the top six, you've got a chance to make it through to the final.
Absolutely, and right now they're on target for that.
Yeah, Sarah Price in the car. She comes from motocross, rallying, X Games, stadium super truck. She's got a wealth of experience to back up what she can do out there. And as you say, this is now looking at proportions. This is working out the odds on what your chances are of getting through. And they know a clear target. They've just got to hope they can get through.
Chip Ganassi.
There he is, the boss.
Such a great name to bring to this sport, isn't it, for Extreme E to get Chip Ganassi.
I wish you have Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button, Nico Rosberg, Chip Ganassi, Zach Brown, Carlos Sainz. Like, that's to name a few.
Oh, that's legend. It's just a cool name anyway. Like, you know, Andrew Coley Racing is not the same as Chip Ganassi.
You know what? So uncool right now.
I know. Like,
sorry,
Jenny, you're ace, but like Jenny Gow Racing is not the same as Chip Ganassi.
I think Jenny Gow Racing sounds great. The other one I forgot my friend John-Eric Verne in that list of world champions because he is a world champion.
Adrian Newey.
Stop it! Now you're showing off.
Just the talent.
If we added up the world championships in this paddock, I suspect it would be pretty hard to match elsewhere. But yeah, some fantastic names and great to see Ganassi here. This isn't the run they would have been looking for, but after yesterday, at the moment as well, what are they? They're +2 minutes and they need to be under +2:25.
I think the issue has happened again. Look, there's no speed in the car. She's really fighting hard. It looks like it's really stressful on the arms. She can't take any risk, guys, over these ruts because the moment she does, look how hard she's having to work.
That's what I spotted with Kyle. It's definitely the steering.
Power steering is gone.
So Sarah Price will be physically wrestling with this car. You guys at home, I'm sure, have all driven your own car. If you stalled it or you know, and the power steering goes, you know how hard it is to push. Now take that, put it on a competition steering rack, which has less turns, which means it's harder to turn, and add onto it a couple of wheels which are weighing 50-odd kilos each. You know, it is incredibly physical, and Sarah is doing an incredible job here just to get this car back. It will be such hard work. Don't forget it's 30-odd degrees out in Saudi Arabia as well. There's no aircon in these. This is a full-on workout just to get the car back to the finish.
The car, 1.8 tons. It was never going to be a light car because you've obviously got the battery in there, you've got the 2 motors, you've got everything that goes into it. So to physically wrestle this round, you cannot underestimate what a job Sarah Price is doing in this car right now just to get it back. We saw it earlier with Katie Munnings. When she had her puncture, she wrestled the car back and she did a tremendous job. So,
but wrestling that with power steering, and this is just so hard. The physicality of this is really hard to explain. Come on, Sarah, not far to go now. She's hanging on to. Look at her. She's having to grit her teeth and really. Particularly, Sam, you can't make fast steering input, so she can't do anything that will unset. Look at the look on her face. Come on, Sarah, get it home.
Oh, it's heartbreaking and encouraging and full of adrenaline. She's just got to get down this hill. She can use a bit of momentum. That will help. All the bumps, Jenny, will be coming through the steering as well. You know, the power assistance helps you with everything. It helps change the car direction quickly. Look at her there when she has to use that 180. This is what I was talking about with fixed input. She's still keeping to the fixed inputs, hands either side of the wheel, and trying now desperately to wrestle it. But it's very physical, and that's what I say I spotted with Kyle at the end of that first lap. I wasn't sure, but it's definitely come back. Oh, the deep rutted section, she's really not got far to go now. She's just got to get this car back. I mean, looking at the times, it's almost irrelevant, but it's not, because you're still fascinated by what she can do. This is a great story. You know, this is what this whole championship is about. It's a great story. She's going to fight that car all the way back to the finish to give them the best chance possible in that next qualifying session of making up the gap on Giampazzola and Bennett and trying to get into that all-important top 6. She's nearly there now, just a couple of corners to go. Price through the left-hander, holding on. She's on a straight. This will be just a brief bit of respite for the Hummerback Segi TV Chip Ganassi racing machine. They're going to end up down in P7, but they've got to be as close as they can to Bennett and Giampazzola Zonka so they can try and take that position off them in the next session. That is a proper hero wrestle drive all the way to the finish. Sarah Price, take a bow, because that was some performance.
Absolutely, that was super tough. Grit and determination got her across the line, and it's not over yet. The fight for 6th place is still on.
Exactly, Sam. That's what's key, isn't it? Look, the gap's 25. We know Leduc and Price are super quick. We've seen a compromise lap from both of them. We did see a penalty as well, of course, for Bennett and Giampolo Zonka. So I think the fight for P6 is potentially going to be the story of the next session.
And she looks like she's done a big old work shift there. Absolutely.
Let's get down to the paddock and hear from Chip Ganassi talking to Layla Annalee.
Kyle, we saw you pause for a moment in the switch zone. Can you explain to us why?
Yeah, I had an issue early on. I lost power steering maybe a mile into it. So it's just a fist fight from there on out. But it may be an issue from yesterday's deal or maybe an electronic issue, but we will figure it out. And we will come back strong. We're ready.
Thank you very much. I see Chip over here as well. Chip, if we can grab a moment with you, how do you feel about the run so far? I believe Sarah's out there.
Well, obviously, you know, not where we want to be, but from where we were yesterday, it's a big gain. You know, we're just happy to complete the 2 laps, and now we can start learning about the car.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there we go, problems for the Chip Ganassi squad, but the car is back safely, which it wasn't yesterday. So they've both done a lap, but you'd have to call it a recce lap because it's slower than they wanted because of just how hard that was going to be. Broken power steering for both drivers, but there is a fight going to be on in the next session. Alejandro Agag there talking to Nico Rosberg, who leads after session number 1, and what a session that was. Christopherson and Taylor lead for RXR. Loeb and Gutierrez, look, are just 5 seconds back from them. Bit of a bigger gap back to Anciona with Sainz and Sands. Hansen and Munnings with a puncture ended up 4th. Button and Kotlinski, who stopped on course of 5th. Bennett, Giampiola, Zonka had a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, but end up 6th. Leduc and Price broken power steering. Ekstrom, Hurtgen, Sarrazin, Chadwick with crashes. I mean, what a session.
I know, and that is only the first part of qualifying, because you know what, Sam and Andrew, the great news is we are going to do it all again for the second part of qualifying, and this is where the fight back will start. Can these drivers find any different lines? Can they find a sand pit that isn't going to hold them back when we do it again? And these will all be for points this time when we go into the next qualifying.
Last car out then was the Ganassi squad. Problems for them with the power steering for Leduc. We went on board and we saw he was having to try so hard. You know, was it when clipping a bank like that? Did they do some damage? Was it a legacy of yesterday's issues? Either way, managed to get the car back. Here you could see Leduc is quicker than that, and then suddenly the reactions were slower.
Yeah, really, really tough for him to do this.
Katie Munnings earlier on in this session, absolutely brilliant to make it back to the finish with the tyre flailing around on the back of the car. You know, Hansen and Munnings were disappointed, but actually they've ended up P4. Never give up.
Yeah, that's absolutely the key to this. You just don't know what's going to be coming up around the corner or behind you, so you've got to give it full tilt, and that's exactly what Katie Munnings did. A brilliant job of getting that back.
Claudia Hurtgen coming down the hill just got slightly out of shape and got launched into an absolutely spectacular accident. If you missed that earlier, you'll be glad to know that she is okay. Will the car be okay? Are we going to see it in session 2 later on this afternoon? Same for Sarrazin, because he had a big one as well.
Yeah, some really great action. Make sure you come back later on today and join us. The second part of qualifying will deliver just as much action as all of our 9 cars try and go back out on track. From all of us here in the commentary box, bye for now.